Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Chris Beers.
Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. withdraws from the Arizona ballot. He's addressing the nation about what he calls the present historical moment and his path forward.
And former President Trump is holding a rally in Glendale, Arizona later this afternoon with an undisclosed special guest who people think could be R.F. Kennedy Jr.
Is an interest rate cut finally on the horizon? Hear Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's latest speech today.
Multiple Secret Service agents are reportedly placed on leave following last month's assassination attempt on former President Trump. The Republican nominee spoke at his first outdoor rally since the attack in North Carolina.
The Supreme Court blocks part of an Arizona law requiring proof of citizenship for voters. How this will impact the presidential election. We'll have the details of the ruling.
The body of British tech tycoon Mike Lynch's daughter has been found. As the rescue operation comes to an end, attention switches to the official investigation into the disaster.
The Justice Department files an antitrust lawsuit against RealPage. Attorney General Merrick Garland says the real estate software company is engaging in an illegal scheme that allows landlords to coordinate rental price hikes.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. withdrew from the Arizona ballot late Thursday. This has been confirmed by the Arizona Secretary of State.
It comes as he's expected to drop out of the presidential race and endorse former President Trump today at an event in Phoenix, Arizona.
You're absolutely right, Chris. He's actually set to speak just miles from where Trump will be speaking today. Trump's campaign said Thursday evening the former president will be joined by a special guest at a rally in Glendale, Arizona today, but it's unclear who exactly that guest will be.
Trump said on Fox News after the DNC concluded last night, quote, "I have no idea if he's going to endorse me," referring to Kennedy. Trump also said it's possible we will be meeting tomorrow and we'll be discussing it. Kennedy's running mate, Nicole Shanahan, said in a podcast on Tuesday, Kennedy might, quote, "walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump." She also said the Kennedy-Shanahan campaign is faced with a choice between risking a Kamala Harris win and supporting the former president.
Trump and Kennedy have shown similarities in their policy views, especially over their vaccine skepticism and their view that the Democratic Party has been weaponizing the legal system. A video of Kennedy on the phone with Trump surfaced just last month. It was posted by Kennedy's son, but then quickly deleted. In it, Trump appeared to say that an alliance would be good for Kennedy. Trump also talked critically about doctors who were injecting babies with COVID-19 vaccines.
That's right, Fiona. There's a lot to come. I mean, this event could really could alter the election. I mean, Kennedy has about 5% of the vote right now, but the majority of those people view Trump favorably. So they're expected to go towards Trump if Kennedy does indeed withdraw. And if Kennedy endorses Trump, which he's expected to, that could be even more for Trump. And this race is so tight in some places. There's this razor thin margin, and that could be enough to tip things in Trump's favor.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Chris. And we just saw yesterday the Democratic National Convention concluded with Vice President Kamala Harris's speech, really rallying the party and bringing up that morale and that spirit. So really a very tight race this time between the two parties. We'll have to see how this development impacts that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you have Kennedy making this announcement a day after the end of the DNC, when you have 4 days of this, boosting and rallying momentum for the Democrats. Everyone's getting excited, talking about joy and love. And then this announcement comes the very next day. And it could, it could possibly take some of the steam out of the Democrats' sails. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to see former President Trump and his allies have been holding counter policy rallies and speeches this entire week in tandem with the Democratic National Convention. Very interesting to see these two parties' strategies. So we'll have to keep an eye on it, definitely.
Right. I imagine at more peaceable times, candidates would generally try to avoid those sort of appearances that try to pop the balloon of the other party, just focusing more positively on their own. But, you know, it really is heated, contentious race right now. People talking about, you know, this is a battle for the soul of America. This is the most important election in this nation's history, which are really powerful words. So, yeah, we'll definitely stay tuned for that Kennedy announcement. You can see the podium there is empty. He should be taking the podium there in just a few minutes. We'll definitely have that for all of you.
Yeah, absolutely right. As we wait for Kennedy to take the stage, we have some other news. Several media outlets report that at least 5 Secret Service agents have been placed on leave following last month's assassination attempt on former President Trump.
Fox and CBS reported that those on leave include the head of the Secret Service's Pittsburgh office.
Critics say there were serious security lapses at the July 13th rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. A primary concern is how the would-be assassin, Thomas Crooks, was able to access a nearby rooftop with a direct line of sight to the podium in the first place.
Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle initially declined to resign after the assassination attempt, but ultimately stepped down. Trump held his first outdoor rally since the attack in North Carolina just this past Wednesday. It's been a while since he did that. He spoke from behind a shield of bulletproof glass. The Supreme Court has blocked some of Arizona's proof of citizenship requirements for the November election. In a 5-4 decision yesterday, the High Court declined to revive parts of a Republican-backed Arizona law. The law could have barred thousands of voters from casting a ballot or voting by mail. Justices left in place a hold against part of the law that required voters to document their U.S. citizenship to vote in this year's presidential election. But the court allowed the state to enforce other proof of citizenship requirements to register for state and local elections.
The Justice Department filed an antitrust lawsuit today against real estate software company RealPage.
Attorney General Merrick Garland said the firm is engaging in an illegal scheme that allows landlords to coordinate rental price hikes.
We allege that this software is developed, marketed, and sold to enable landlords to sidestep vigorous competition in the rental market. Competing landlords agree to submit to RealPage on a daily basis their most sensitive, non-public information, including rental rates, lease terms, and projected vacancies. RealPage then combines this data from competing landlords and feeds it into an algorithm that provides real-time pricing recommendations back to the competing landlords.
According to the suit, RealPage is violating antitrust laws through its algorithm. The DOJ claims the algorithm allows landlords to align their prices and avoid competition that would keep rent down. The government points to statements by RealPage executives themselves. The DOJ says those comments show higher-ups realized they were hindering competition in the rental housing market.
In June, RealPage called the claims false and misleading. The company said landlords decide their own rent prices and are free to reject its recommendations. The attorneys general of 8 states have joined the lawsuit.
The Federal Reserve is signaling that lower interest rates are finally on the horizon. Right,
people have been talking about this for a while. Chair Jerome Powell delivered a keynote speech at an annual gathering of central bankers and economists in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
Overall, the economy continues to grow at a solid pace, but the inflation and labor market data show an evolving situation. The upside risks to inflation have diminished, and the downside risks to employment have increased. The time has come for policy to adjust. The direction of travel is clear, and the timing and pace of rate cuts will depend on incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks.
Powell's latest comments opened the door wide open for the first interest rate cut since 2020. It is slated for the Fed's upcoming policy meeting on September 17th and 18th. The upcoming decision to cut rates is a sign that officials feel confident enough that price pressures are coming under control, but also that the economy is weakening. Powell said the Fed will do everything it can to support a strong labor market as it makes further progress towards price stability.
After last night, which was the final night of the Democratic National Convention, the DNC, as I mentioned, is now over.
Right. NTD's Daniel Monahan breaks down some key moments, including Vice President Harris's speech.
Vice President Kamala Harris says America is charting a new way forward.
To a future with a strong and growing middle class, because we know a strong middle class has always been critical to America's success.
Harris laid out her economic priorities.
And as president, I will bring together labor and workers and small business owners and entrepreneurs and American companies to create jobs, to grow our economy, and to lower the cost of everyday needs.
And promised to care for American troops and their families.
As Commander-in-Chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world.
She also called for an end to the war in the Middle East.
President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
Roy Cooper.
North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper lauded Harris for standing up to banks during the 2011 mortgage crisis. He shared a story of how she walked away from a $4 billion settlement other state attorneys general were ready to agree to.
That's Kamala. And we all know what happened. The banks caved. That $4 billion for California families became $20 billion.
Maya Harris.
Kamala Harris's sister, Maya Harris, says the vice president knows what it's like to be underestimated and be counted out.
Where others push darkness, Kamala sees promise. Where others feel detachment, Kamala fosters connection.
Some speakers, like Sandy Hook teacher Abby Clements, called for gun control.
20 beautiful first-grade children and 6 of my beautiful colleagues were killed. They should still be here.
Kim Rubio's daughter attended Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. The devastated mom says her daughter got a Good Citizen Award for receiving all A's on the day of the tragic shooting.
She wears a St. Mary's sweatshirt and a smile that lights up the room. 30 minutes later, a gunman murders her, 18 classmates and 2 teachers.
Former Congressman Adam Kinzinger says he learned something about the Democratic Party.
And I want to let my fellow Republicans in on the secret. The Democrats are as patriotic as us. They love this country just as much as we do.
Kinzinger retired from Congress after he criticized his own party in the aftermath of the January 6th Capitol breach.
What's up, everybody?
NBA champion Steph Curry shared a video endorsing Harris as president.
I got to visit Kamala with my team in the White House last year, and I can tell you one thing I knew then, and I definitely know now. The Oval Office suits her well.
Secretary of the Interior Deb Haaland says America needs a president like Harris who understands the importance of taking care of the planet.
She held polluters accountable for spilling oil into the San Francisco Bay. She defended President Obama's Clean Power Plan in court.
Anti-Israel protesters clashed with Chicago police during the last night of the convention. Some swung wooden signs down at officers. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Next, the economy and immigration have emerged as top issues on voters' minds this election cycle, so much so that they're causing some voters to switch parties. NTD's Chris Bobb caught up with former Chicago Democrats who now say they plan to vote Republican.
Theo Hardiman, better known as Mr. Ceasefire, is the president of Violence Interrupters. It's a Chicago-based group that mediates between gangs to foster peace on the streets. Hardiman twice ran for governor of Illinois, both times as a Democrat. But he says he felt silence when he opposed some party policies. He now plans to vote for candidate Trump. As someone who's worked with gangs for years, he says legislation is being applied in the wrong places.
One major hot button issue is gun control, right? I support the Second Amendment because it's not the legal gun owners that are out here shooting and killing everybody, right? So somewhere along the way, the system has failed when it comes down to intercepting the illegal gun trafficking, right?
But that's not the only reason Hardiman says he'll be voting Republican. Like millions of other voters, he says illegal immigration needs to be urgently addressed.
Another thing, the illegal immigrant situation, okay? You had about 66,000 homeless people already living in Chicago before the illegal immigrants arrived in Chicago, but their priority became supporting the illegal immigrants. That's not right. Look out for the people here first.
Another voter who made the switch to Republican is Dr. Cornell Darden Jr. Once a Democratic voter, Dr. Darden is now one of the leaders of the Illinois Black Republican Caucus. He says many of its members voted for President Biden in the last election. But after witnessing Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson's administration's spending, they now say they're voting for Trump.
A lot of these people are at the city council meetings in Chicago all the time. Mayor Johnson just posted that we have a $500 million shortfall, but he spent $500 million on migrants. So now he's considering ways to raise revenues and taxes from the citizens who he's not taking care of. The single biggest issue in Chicago right now that everybody's talking about is the migrant crisis. It's causing a huge problem here in Chicago.
Darden has a message to Republicans who want to win the votes of Black Americans.
Come talk to these people. These people are regular people. They're Americans. Many of their families have been here for 200 years or more. So these aren't immigrants by any stretch of the imagination. These are true blood Americans, and they just want to be heard, and they want people to reach out.
Charles Williams of the Ward 6 Republican Committee also recently switched parties. He says voting Democrat in 2020 was a big mistake. Williams says the Democrats' policies do not help the homeless people of Chicago. Violence has gone up and the economy has suffered.
We're a smorgasbord of smart and capable individuals. We don't need anyone else to help us. We need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and get the job done. We need more businesses. We need more people that's into the job industry. We need more trades in the community. And I absolutely feel that Trump has the answer for that.
Williams also mentioned some of the legislation on social issues Democrats passed, which caused him to switch parties.
Allowing children to come to school and make the decision whether they want to be a boy or a girl, and parents don't have say-so on that. Like, these are the things that made me change my viewpoint. That's absolutely ridiculous to me, and I will never accept that.
The Democratic National Convention was just held in Chicago.
On the final day of the National Democratic Convention, lawmakers and leaders share their thoughts on various issues, from China to faith to fatherhood. Take a look.
Congressman Jimmy Panetta says Vice President Harris needs to talk more about kitchen table issues to bring in independent voters.
How people are feeling about the prices and what steps, as she has been doing, but what steps we're going to continue to take going forward so that we can reduce inflation. Not, even though it's coming down, we got to make sure people are feeling it at the stores. And so that's what she's tried to hit on with her recent policy speeches.
Susan Johnson Cook, former U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, says it's an important moment for all Americans.
America's soul has been broken and divided. And for once, people are happy and they have hope again. So I think that this is a moment and it's a movement. And we hope that this movement of joy will continue.
Cook says Harris is a woman of faith.
For a person to have faith, that makes a difference because you're not talking about it, you are living it out. And I think she is a ray of hope because she has experienced life as an African American, as an Asian American, as an immigrant daughter. And so I think she's going to be a model of experience, success, and joy all packaged into one. And that is really what the faith experience is about. Faith is the substance of things we're hoping for and the evidence of things things we haven't seen. So we're looking to see some good evidence in this presidency.
Representative Jimmy Gomez says housing is no longer a blue state or a blue city issue.
It's spread across the country. I had talked to a Republican in Ohio. Number one issue, housing. Nebraska, number one issue, housing. Florida, number one issue, housing. And so that's kind of the main issue that people are talking about is affordability and how do you make it easy for people to get by. And most people in this country get their wealth from owning a home. So they're connected and people need to feel like they have a stake in the American dream. And the best way to do that is getting them an opportunity to buy something.
Former U.S. Ambassador to Australia, Jeff Bleach, discusses what he sees as the biggest external threat to the country.
We have the rise of authoritarians. They like to talk about a multipolar world. And what they'd really like to do is avoid American leadership, because they know without American leadership, there's effectively no leadership, and they're left to their own devices. They can treat their own people and their own neighbors any way that they want, and they can start to undermine the global world order, which has maintained security and prosperity for much of the last 70 years. So there's...
As long-term challenges, Bleach mentions population growth and climate change.
The impact of that on the global south and China's ambitions in particular in Africa, in South America, and with its Belt and Road Initiative. So there's going to be global competition, and I think there are going to be some leaders in the world who want to play by different rules.
Florida DNC Delegate Bernard Jennings says the Sunshine State's Good Dad Act is the only law in the country that provides fathers with equal rights to their children.
It's called House Bill 775. The legal name is Parental Responsibility After the Determination of Paternity. And what it does, it says that when a father steps up and he's already on the birth certificate, he has the same rights and responsibilities as the mother, as if he was married, although they're not. So it provides fathers a great opportunity to be able to get involved in their children's lives because they are backed by the law now.
Jennings wrote a book about his struggles to be in his own son's life called Ethan's Good Dad Act. He says Vice President Harris needs to resonate with people in the middle class and younger Americans, for example, the 20 to 40 age group, to succeed.
There seems to be a disconnect that a lot of young people were used to things so fast. We're the iced tea age, instant everything. Everything's on the phone fast. Whatever you want to get, you get it now. It's flashy clothes, flashy shoes, and they don't see and understand fully the fact that democracy is something that takes time, but you have to work towards democracy to receive democracy. It's not instant. There are things that are going on, there are programs that are available that Democrats have put in place for over 50 years. And if you're not engaged into your government, if you're not engaged to what the laws and rules and regulations are, you're not going to see the benefit.
Whether Harris gets a bump after the 4-day convention remains to be seen. Current Real Clear polling averages show the vice president with a 1.5-point lead over former President Trump. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
NTD spoke to voters around the country to hear their thoughts on this year's race for the White House. Here's what some of them had to say when asked about how important the upcoming presidential election is to them.
Every presidential election is important, and this year is just as important as ever.
The election is very important to me because a lot of people are not open-minded to the fact that our votes actually matter. And when they wonder why certain things are not going the way they wanted to, is because they didn't vote for the person that was going to actually benefit them.
I feel like the U.S. president still has quite an impact on politics globally, so I think it's still plays a vital role.
My biggest fear is seeing Project 2025 come to life and a lot of us losing our basic civil rights.
America's in a rough shape right now with our economy and on the world stage. And I think that this upcoming election will really play into how those things are settled.
Retaining democracy and equity in this country. And because of that, I think that the issues in this election are important.
The country's heading in the wrong direction. And this administration, not good.
I think it's very important. You look around, the neighborhood has really gone south.
The importance of the election is for people to say their word and what they want for their life, not to be controlled by other forces who knows, which are including communists and dictatorships and things of that nature that are destroying our world.
Coming up, a deadly prison siege in Russia today. Alleged ISIS terrorists killed staff and took hostages. How did Russian snipers end the hours-long hostage situation? We'll have more on that after the break.
The 7th NTD International Piano Competition will take place at the Kaufman Music Center in New York City. Pianists from around the world will come together to revive the great piano masterpieces. Join us on this uplifting journey. The semifinals, finals, and the winner's concert will be open to audiences and live streamed from October 17th to the 19th. Get tickets now at 212-501-3330.
Sama كتير رعب وطبعا هلا يعني أنا بحس بالرعب الكبير بدنا بس نعيش بأمان.
Conflict is raging across the world, and millions of children's lives are being devastated by war, hunger, disease, and poverty. We urgently need your help to reach children in crisis. Please call or go online to give just $10 a month, only 33 cents a day. We need 1,000 new monthly donors this month to help children in crisis around the world and right here at home. You can help us provide food, essentials, and life-saving medical care to children in the most need.
حريتنا يعني بدنا نعيش زي كل الأطفال بدنا نعيش بحرية وأمان.
In the darkest times, children suffer the most. You can help by calling right now and giving just $10 a month. All we need are 1,000 monthly donors. Please call or go online now with your monthly gift of just $10. Thanks to generous government grants, every dollar you give can have up to 10 times the impact. And when you call with your credit card, we will send you this Save the Children tote bag as a thank you for your support.
وعيت على هاي الدنيا القصف والنزوح والخيمة. أتمنى نعود على بلادنا. شايف لك إنه هذا مستحيل.
Your small monthly donation of just $10 could be the reason a child in crisis survives. Show them they're not alone. Please call or go online to givetosave.org to help save lives.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Welcome back. Some sad news about the sunken yacht off the coast of Sicily. The body of British tech tycoon Mike Lynch's 18-year-old daughter, Hannah Lynch, has been recovered.
So young. She was the last person still unaccounted for after the family's luxury yacht, the Bayesian, sank earlier this week off the coast of Sicily.
Hannah's body was discovered on Friday by divers who had been searching the submerged vessel for the past 5 days. 7 people, including Mike Lynch himself, died when the Bayesian capsized during a fierce pre-dawn storm on Monday. 15 people survived, including Lynch's wife. A spokesperson for the Lynch family said they are devastated, in shock, and are being comforted and supported by family and friends.
With the rescue operation nearing its end, attention now shifts to the official investigation into the disaster. Italian prosecutors are investigating potential manslaughter charges and negligent shipwreck. So far, no one has been formally charged.
A revolt at a Russian prison today. Snipers killed 4 inmates after they fatally stabbed guards and took hostages.
The perpetrators reportedly said they're part of the terrorist organization ISIS.
Russian media reported that the incident took place at a penal colony some 500 miles from Moscow. The Federal Prison Service says 8 prison employees and 4 convicts had been held hostage. 4 of the staff died of stab wounds. Others are being treated at a hospital. The attackers had reportedly pledged allegiance to ISIS.
One of the things to note here is that Russia experts consistently report that Russia is a bit of an enigma and that messages coming out of Russia might not be 100% trustworthy. So keep that in mind as you hear about this. Russian President Vladimir Putin addressed the incident before the inmates were shot. Putin said he wanted to hear from Russian officials before taking action. In total, the hostage situation lasted for several hours before the alleged terrorists were shot.
For the first time since Ukraine's independence, an Indian prime minister is visiting Kyiv. Ukraine is getting ready to celebrate Independence Day despite the ongoing war.
NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the latest on the conflict.
Modi, Modi, Modi. People chanted the name of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi as he arrived in Ukraine on Friday. It's the first time an Indian leader has visited in modern Ukrainian history. Modi used the occasion to urge President Volodymyr Zelensky to sit down for talks with Russia.
No conflict can be resolved on the battlefield. The road to resolution can only be found through dialogue and diplomacy.
Zelensky addressed the military on Friday as the nation marked the National Flag Day on the eve of Independence Day.
In this war, we are first of all fighting for the right for justice for Ukraine and Ukrainians, the right for what is ours.
33 years ago, Ukraine gained independence from the Soviet Union, which was mainly controlled by the Kremlin. Fighting, meanwhile, continues in Russia's Kursk region. Ukraine released this video saying it shows high-precision glide bombs striking a Russian platoon strongpoint. Russia published this video appearing to show a drone attack on a Ukrainian tank in the region. So far, almost 200,000 people had to be evacuated from Kursk due to the fighting. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
Thank you for that report, Arian. Moving on to Asia, Taiwan wants to remain free from communist control and rejects being ruled by China's Communist Party. Taiwan President Lai Ching-te said this today. Lai visited the frontline island of Kinmen on Friday to mark a key battle with Chinese forces in the 1960s. The island is only a couple of miles away from China's coast, putting it under significant military pressure from Beijing. This is Lai's first trip to Kinmen Island since assuming office back in May.
We are no longer trying to retake the mainland, but we are also unwilling to be ruled by the Communist Party. We want to continue a life of democracy, freedom, human rights, and rule of law.
Communist China vows to take over Taiwan and doesn't rule out using force if necessary. To counter it, Taiwan's defense spending for next year will rise 7.7% year-on-year, outpacing its expected economic growth. The goal is to reach 3% of the island's GDP. This is higher than in most democracies around the world. Lai said Taiwan's defense spending will increase every year. It wants to strengthen training and purchase weapons from America. At the same time, Lai says Taiwan is standing shoulder to shoulder with democracies worldwide. Coming up, the Kennedy speech is slightly postponed. We'll hear a political analyst about his move and predictions after the break.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Lord Heavenly Father, I pray to you today to guide us tomorrow. Give us strength as we face death. Help us not to be afraid.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
It has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're gonna benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
Welcome back. Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is expected to make a major announcement in the next few minutes here, like we've been saying. His running mate, Nicole Shanahan, suggested he could drop out and actually endorse former President Trump. How about that? Joining us live to discuss what to expect is political analyst Jeff Cruer. Jeff, it's good to see you. What do you think we'll hear from Kennedy today?
I think he's going to drop out. I think he's going to endorse Donald Trump, and I think he's going to encourage his supporters to get behind Trump. That's what I think. It looks like he's dropping out. It looks like in a court filing he said he was going to be endorsing Trump. You never know. Always could be a last-minute surprise. I know his wife has been trying to lobby him not to do this. He's a Kennedy now. A lot of the Kennedy family is probably appalled that he could be endorsing Donald Trump today. But I think that's what's going to happen. He's going to get out, endorse Donald Trump. And guess what? That's going to be a big difference in some of these states.
Yeah, talk about that. What could that mean for the election?
Well, I've been looking at the battleground states, and Kennedy's been getting approximately 5% of the vote. So you consider that the majority of these people will vote, and the majority, I think, will follow Kennedy's lead. So it'll give Trump maybe a point or two boost in some of these states where it's neck and neck with Kamala Harris. So that could be a big advantage for Trump in these final few weeks of the campaign, especially if, Kennedy campaigns with him.
Kennedy's running mate, Nicole Shanahan, said in a podcast this week she fully supports Kennedy working for the Trump administration. How likely is Trump to hire Kennedy if Kennedy does indeed drop out and endorse Trump?
That could have been part of a deal whereby he gets out for a position in the cabinet. Look at the Biden cabinet. Pete Buttigieg was a presidential candidate. Look at Kamala Harris. She was a presidential candidate. So I think that could very well happen. Kennedy has got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. Some have talked about him being Attorney General, others as HHS Secretary. I think he would be open to it, and I think Trump would be smart to bring him on. He's got incredible experience, and I think he's a very, very smart guy. So we'll see. It just throws another, X factor into this presidential race. I mean, how many more changes can there be in the past few months? It seems like every few days it's a breathtaking announcement about a major change.
Jeff, at this point, I am not holding my breath. I mean, it feels like anything could happen right now. I mean, you think it's a clear shot. It's almost like some kind of act of God will end up determining the result of this election. Before we go,
besides that, we got the debates, and then we've got all kinds of other things that could affect it internationally, et cetera.
Right, and we haven't even heard much from Kamala Harris off script. So when she finally does get in front of an interviewer or in these debates, that could change things as well. We'll have to see. But before we go too much further, talking about any speculation about what could happen, I'm wondering what can you tell us about how do we know that Kennedy is expected to endorse Trump?
It's what the running mate said. It's what the rumor mill has been producing. It's what the court filings are showing, that he's getting out and will be endorsing Trump. So, I mean, all that can possibly be changed if there's a last minute change of mind. And of course, this whole thing is delayed today. I mean, it was supposed to be earlier. But I mean, I do think it's going to happen. I think he's wise to get out because the Democrats have kept him off of state ballots. I mean, I think he's got anger at the Democrats. And I think that's why another reason why he's looking at Donald Trump, because Democrats have really tried to thwart him every step of the way. Of course, he initially was a Democrat running against Biden, and they aced him out of all the debates and all the possibility of taking on Biden. So I think he's got some anger toward the Democratic Party. And he's got some commonality with President Trump on some issues, such as never-ending wars, such as what's going on at the border. He's now a border hawk. So all of that, I think, could be another reason why he's getting behind Donald Trump.
Yeah, it does seem that there's a lot of commonalities. We heard that phone call between Kennedy and Trump that wasn't supposed to be released. I guess Kennedy's son videotaped it and then put it on social media and then quickly deleted it, but it's all available. I was able to see it this afternoon preparing for the show today. In that call, Trump says that he expresses criticism of the vaccines, something that Kennedy has talked about, and he also said that this could be good for Kennedy. I'm wondering what kind of consequences could there be for Kennedy, good or bad, if he does indeed endorse Trump?
The bad part will be his family might disown him. I mean, the Kennedys are Democrat Party royalty. They're going to hate this if he does endorse Donald Trump. I wish him well with his wife. I know she's not going to be happy. So I think personally, he could have a lot of downside. But as far as the positives, he would never get a position in a Kamala Harris administration. His only chance to serve at that kind of level would be with Donald Trump. So I think there's more of an upside to him doing this. He can't continue to run as an independent candidate. There is nothing there for him. He's not going to be on enough state ballots. He's not raising enough money. His poll numbers are going down. So it's really smart for him to get out, make the best of it. And I think there's more commonality with Trump. But you never know what the personal impact could be of family and friends that are upset by this, because he's going against his history, his family, by endorsing, if he does today, a Republican, which is heresy among the Kennedy family.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much polarity between these two parties. Though I did remember Kennedy saying that though there's this conflict politically in their family, they still get along at Thanksgiving time. His running mate, Shanahan, entertained the idea of Kennedy working for Trump in the Trump administration as Trump's Secretary of Department of Health and Human Services. I'm wondering what kind of hypothetical role do you think Kennedy would play in the Trump administration if that does actually play out that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be a possibility. I think Attorney General is a possibility. He's an attorney, has a very successful track record. He knows the power of these agencies and departments in the federal government. His family has tangled with them. He's tangled with them. He knows that Donald Trump has. I think that's an alliance that they have there. They want to fight back against the deep state. They want to turn more power over to the people. And I think there could be a role there, could be a role in HHS. Of course, the most famous skeptic of vaccines in the country is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And if there is another pandemic, I would certainly want someone like him in that position that wouldn't be a tool of the pharmaceutical company, wouldn't be someone just doing whatever the pharmaceutical company wanted. And I think a lot of critics of the last pandemic and how it was handled believe that it just made a lot of money for pharmaceutical companies and a lot of average Americans were hurt. So I think he could play a role there. I mean, he's talented in a lot of areas. We'll see. Sometimes there could be a fit in another area, possibly. But I like the fact that Trump's entertaining it. I would like him to put together, a cabinet of people that are outsiders, people that can bring different experiences to the table.
Yeah, that would certainly be a pretty interesting move, a former Democrat into his own administration. All right, Jeff Crouere, thank you so much for your time. I'm hearing that we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. about to start speaking. Let's tune in.
Thanks.
That's right, Chris. Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is now addressing the nation live. Let's take a look.
The cognitive decline of the sitting president, I left the party to run as an independent. The mainstream of American politics and journalism derided my decision. Conventional wisdom said that it would be impossible even to get on the ballot as an independent because each state poses an insurmountable tangle of arbitrary rules for collecting signatures. I would need over 1 million signatures, something no presidential candidate in history had ever achieved. And then I'd need a team of attorneys and millions of dollars to handle all the legal challenges from the DNC. The naysayers told us that we were climbing a glass version of Mount Impossible. So the first thing I want to tell you is that we proved them wrong. We did it because beneath the radar of mainstream media organs, we inspired a massive independent political movement. More than 100,000 volunteers sprang into action, hopeful that they could reverse our nation's decline. Many worked 10-hour days, sometimes in blizzards and blazing heat. They sacrificed family time, personal commitments, and sleep month after month, energized by a shared vision of a nation healed of its divisions. They set up tables at churches and farmers' markets. They canvassed door to door. In Utah and in New Hampshire, volunteers collected signatures in snowstorms, convincing each supporter to stop in the frigid cold, to take off their gloves, and to sign legibly. During a heat wave in Nevada, I met a tall, athletic volunteer who cheerfully told me that he had lost 25 pounds collecting signatures in 117-degree heat. To finance this effort, young Americans donated their lunch money, and senior citizens gave up part of their Social Security checks. Our 50-state organization collected those millions of signatures and more. No presidential campaign in American political history has ever done that. And so I want to thank all of those dedicated volunteers and congratulate the campaign staff who coordinated this enormous logistical feat. Your accomplishments were regarded as impossible. You carried me up that glass mountain. You pulled off a miracle. You achieved what all the pundits said could never be done. You have my deepest gratitude, and I'm never going to forget that, not just for what you did for my campaign, but for the sacrifices you made because you love our country. You showed everyone that democracy is still possible here. It continues to survive in the press and in the idealistic human energies that still thrive beneath the canvas of neglect and of official and institutional corruption. Today, I'm here to tell you that I will not allow your efforts to go to waste. I'm here to tell you that I will leverage your tremendous accomplishments to serve the ideals that we share, the ideals of peace, of prosperity, of freedom, of health, all the ideals that motivated my campaign. I'm here today to describe the path forward that you've opened with your commitment and with your hard labors. Now, in an honest system, I believe that I would have won the election. In a system the kind that my father and my uncles thrived in, a system with open debates, with fair primaries, with regularly scheduled debates, with fair primaries, and with a truly independent media untainted by government propaganda and censorship. In a system of nonpartisan courts and election boards, everything would be different. After all, the polls consistently showed me beating each of the other candidates, both in favorability and also in head-to-head matchups. But I'm sorry to say that while democracy may still be alive at the grassroots, it has become little more than a slogan for our political institutions, for our media, and for our government, and most sadly at all for me, the Democratic Party. In the name of saving democracy, the Democratic Party set itself to dismantling it, lacking confidence in its candidate, that its candidate could win in a fair election at the voting booth. The DNC waged continual legal warfare against both President Trump and myself. Each time that our volunteers turned in those towering boxes of signatures needed to get on the ballot, the DNC dragged us into court, state after state, attempting to erase their work and to subvert the will of the voters who had signed those petitions. It deployed DNC-aligned judges to throw me and other candidates off the ballot and to throw President Trump in jail. It ran a sham primary that was rigged to prevent any serious challenge to President Biden. Then, when a predictably bungled debate performance precipitated the palace coup against President Biden, the same shadowy DNC operatives appointed his successor, also without an election. They installed a candidate who was so unpopular with voters that she dropped out in 2020 without winning a single delegate. My uncle and my father both relished debate. They prided themselves on their capacity to go toe-to-toe with any opponent in the battle over ideas. They would be astonished to learn of a Democratic Party presidential nominee who, like Vice President Harris, has not appeared in a single interview or an unscripted encounter with voters for 35 days. This is profoundly undemocratic. How are people to choose when they don't know whom they are choosing? And how can this look to the rest of the world? My father and my uncle were always conscious of America's image abroad because of our nation's role as the template for democracy, the role model for democratic processes, and the leader of the free world. Instead of showing us her substance and character, the DNC and its media organs engineered a surge of popularity for Vice President Harris based upon, well, nothing. No policies, no interviews, no debates, only smoke and mirrors and balloons in a highly produced Chicago circus. There in Chicago, a string of Democratic speakers mentioned Donald Trump 147 times just on the first day. Oh, who needs a policy when you have Trump to hate? In contrast, at the RNC convention, President Biden was mentioned only twice in 4 days. I do interviews every day. Many of you have interviewed me. Anybody who asks gets to interview me. Some days I do as many as 10. President Trump, who actually was nominated and won an election, also does interviews daily. How did the Democratic Party choose a candidate that has never done an interview or debate during the entire election cycle? We know the answers. They did it by weaponizing the government agencies. They did it by abandoning democracy. They did it by suing the opposition and by disenfranchising American voters. What most alarms me isn't how the Democratic Party conducts its internal affairs or runs its candidates. What alarms me is the resort to censorship and media control and the weaponization of the federal agencies. When a U.S. president colludes with or outright coerces media companies to censor political speech, it's an attack on our most sacred right of free expression, and that's the very right upon which all of our other constitutional rights rest. President Biden mocked Vladimir Putin's 88% landslide in the Russian elections, observing that Putin and his party controlled the Russian press and that Putin prevented serious opponents from appearing on the ballot. But here in America, the DNC also prevented opponents from appearing on the ballot. And our television networks exposed themselves as Democratic Party organs over the course of more than a year in a campaign where my poll numbers reached at times in the high 20s. The DNC-aligned mainstream media networks maintain a near perfect embargo on interviews with me. During his 10-month presidential campaign in 1992, Ross Perot gave 34 interviews on mainstream networks. In contrast, during the 16 months since I declared, ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, and CNN combined gave only 2 live interviews from me. Those networks instead ran a continuous deluge of hit pieces with inaccurate, often vile, pejoratives and defamatory smears. Some of those same networks and colluded with the DNC to keep me off the debate stage. Representatives of those networks are in this room right now, and I'll just take a moment to ask you to consider the many ways that your institutions have abdicated this really sacred responsibility, the duty of a free press to safeguard democracy and to challenge always the party in power. Instead of maintaining that posture of fear, skepticism toward authority, your institutions have made themselves government mouthpieces and stenographers for the organs of power. You didn't alone cause the devolution of American democracy, but you could have prevented it. The Democratic Party's censorship of social media was even more of a naked exercise of executive power. This week, a federal judge, Terry Doty, upheld my injunction against President Biden, calling the White House's censorship project, quote, the most egregious violation of the First Amendment in the history of the United States of America. Doty's previous 155-page decision details how just 37 hours after he took the oath of office, swearing to uphold the Constitution, President Biden and his White House opened up a portal and then invited the CIA, the FBI, CISA, which is a censorship agency, it's the center of the censorship industrial complex, DHS, the IRS, and other agencies to censor me and other political dissidents on social media. Even today, users who try to post my campaign videos to Facebook or YouTube get messages that this content violates community standards. 2 days after Judge Doty rendered his decision this week, Facebook was still attaching warning labels to an online petition calling on ABC to include me in the upcoming debate. They said that violates community standards, their community standards. The mainstream media was once the guardian of the First Amendment and democratic principles, and it's joined this systemic attack on democracy. It also, the media justifies their censorship on the grounds of combating misinformation, but governments and oppressors don't censor lies. They don't fear lies. They fear the truth, and that's what they censor. And I don't want any of this to sound like a personal complaint, because it's not. For me, it's all part of a journey, and it's a journey that I signed up with. But I need to make these observations because I think they're critical for us doing the thing that we need to do as citizens in a democracy to assess where we are in this country and what our democracy still looks like and the assumptions about U.S. leadership around the globe. And are we living up, are we really still a role model for democracy in this country? Or have we made it, a kind of a joke? And here's the good news. While mainstream outlets denied me a critical platform, they didn't shut down my ideas, which have especially flourished among young voters and independent voters, thanks to the alternative media. Many months ago, I promised the American people that I would withdraw from the race if I became a spoiler. A spoiler is someone who will alter the outcome of the election but has no chance of winning. In my heart, I no longer believe that I have a realistic path to electoral victory in the face of this relentless systematic censorship and media control. So I cannot in good conscience ask my staff and volunteers to keep working their long hours or ask my donors to keep giving when I cannot honestly tell them that I have a real path to the White House. Furthermore, our polling consistently showed that by staying on the ballot in the battleground states, I would likely hand the election over to the Democrats with whom I disagree on the most existential issues: censorship, war, and chronic disease. Oh, I want everyone to know that I am not terminating my campaign. I am simply suspending it and not ending it. My name will remain on the ballot in most states. If you live in a blue state, you can vote for me without harming or helping President Trump or Vice President Harris. In red states, the same will apply. I encourage you to vote for me. And if enough of you do vote for me, and neither of the major party candidates win 270 votes, which is quite possible, in fact, today our polling shows them tying at 269 to 269, and I could conceivably still end up in the White House in a contingent election. But in about 10 battleground states where my presence would be a spoiler, I'm going to remove my name, and I've already started that process and urge voters not to vote for me. It's with a sense of victory and not defeat that I'm suspending my campaign activities. Not only did we do the impossible by collecting 1 million signatures, we changed the national political conversation forever. Chronic disease, free speech, government corruption, breaking our addiction to war have moved to the center of politics. I can say to all who have worked so hard the last year and a half, thank you for a job well done. 3 great causes drove me to enter this race in the first place, primarily. And these are the principal causes that persuaded me to leave the Democratic Party and run as an independent. And now to throw my support to President Trump. The causes were free speech, a war in Ukraine, and the war on our children. I've already described some of my personal experiences and struggles with the government's censorship industrial complex. I want to say a word about the Ukraine war. The military-industrial complex has provided us with a familiar comic book justification, like they do on every war, that this one is a noble effort to stop a supervillain, Vladimir Putin, from invading the Ukraine and then to thwart his Hitler-like march across Europe. In fact, tiny Ukraine is a proxy in a geopolitical struggle initiated by the ambitions of the U.S. neocons for American global hegemony. I'm not excusing Putin for invading Ukraine. He had other options. But the war is Russia's predictable response to the reckless neocon project of extending NATO to encircle Russia, a hostile act. The credulous media rarely explain to Americans that we unilaterally walked away from 2 intermediate nuclear weapons treaties with Russia and then put nuclear-ready Aegis missile systems in Romania and Poland. This is a hostile act. And that the Biden White House repeatedly spurned Russia's offer to settle this war peacefully. The Ukraine war began in 2014 when U.S. agencies overthrew the democratically elected government of Ukraine and installed a hand-picked pro-Western government that launched a deadly civil war against ethnic Russians in Ukraine. In 2019, America walked away from a peace treaty, the Minsk Agreement, that had been negotiated between Russia and Ukraine by European nations. And then in April of 2022, we wanted the war. In April of 2022, President Biden sent Boris Johnson to Ukraine to force President Zelensky to tear up a peace agreement that he and the Russians had already signed, and the Russians were withdrawing troops from Kiev and Donbass and Lugansk. And that peace agreement would have brought peace to the region and would have allowed Donbass and Lugansk to remain part of Ukraine. President Biden stated that month that his objective in the war was regime change in Russia. His Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin, simultaneously explained that America's purpose in the war was to exhaust the Russian army, to degrade its capacity to fight anywhere else in the world. These objectives, of course, have nothing to do with what they were telling Americans about protecting Ukraine's sovereignty. Ukraine is a victim in this war, and it's a victim of the West. Since then, of Russia and both Russia and the West. Since then, we have, since tearing up that agreement, forcing Zelensky to tear up the agreement, we've squandered the flower of Ukrainian youth, as many as 600,000 Ukrainian kids and over 100,000 Russian kids, all of whom we should be mourning, have died, and the Ukraine's infrastructure is destroyed. The war has been a disaster for our country as well. We squandered nearly $200 billion already, and these are badly needed dollars in our communities, suffering communities all over our country. The Nord Stream pipeline sabotage and the sanctions have destroyed Europe's industrial base, which formed the bulwark of U.S. national security. A strong Germany with a strong industry is a much stronger deterrent to Russia, and a Germany that is deindustrialized and turned into just an extension of U.S. military base. We've pushed Russia into a disastrous alliance with China and Iran. We're closer to the brink of nuclear exchange than at any time since 1962. And the neocons in the White House don't seem to care at all. Our moral authority and our economy are in shambles, and the war gave rise to the emergence of BRICS, which now threatens to replace the dollar as the global reserve currency. This is a first-class calamity for our country. Judging by her bellicose, belligerent speech last night in Chicago, we can assume that President Harris will be an enthusiastic advocate for this and other neocon military adventures. And President Trump says that he will reopen negotiations with President Putin and end the war overnight as soon as he becomes president. This alone would justify my support for his campaign. Last summer, it looked like no candidate was willing to negotiate a quick end to the Ukraine war, to tackle chronic disease epidemic, to protect free speech, our constitutional freedoms, to clean corporate influence out of our government, or to defy the neocons and their agenda of endless military adventurism. But now one of the two candidates has adopted these issues as his own, to the point where he has asked to enlist me in his administration. I'm speaking, of course, of Donald Trump. Less than 2 hours after President Trump narrowly escaped assassination, Callie Means called me on my cell phone. I was then in Las Vegas. Callie is arguably the leading advocate for food safety, for soil regeneration, and for ending the chronic disease epidemic that is destroying America's health and ruining our economy. Callie has exposed the insidious corruption at the FDA, the NIH, the HHS, and the USDA that has caused the epidemic. Callie had been working on and off for my campaign, advising me on those subjects since the beginning. And those subjects have been my primary focus for the last 20 years. I was delighted when Callie told me that day that he had also been advising President Trump. He told me President Trump was anxious to talk to me about chronic disease and other subjects and to explore avenues of cooperation. He asked if I would take a call from the president. President Trump telephoned me a few minutes later, and I met with him the following day. A few weeks later, I met again with President Trump and his family members and closest advisors in Florida. In a series of long, intense discussions, I was surprised to discover that we are aligned on many key issues. In those meetings, he suggested that we join forces as a unity party. We talked about Abraham Lincoln's team of rivals. That arrangement would allow us to disagree publicly and privately, and fiercely, if need be, on issues over which we differ, while working together on the existential issues upon which we are in concordance. I was a ferocious critic of many of the policies during his first administration, and there are still issues and approaches upon which we continue to have very serious differences. But we are aligned with each other on other key issues, like ending the forever wars, ending the childhood disease epidemics, securing the border, protecting freedom of speech, unraveling the corporate capture of our regulatory agencies, getting the U.S. intelligence agencies out of the business of propagandizing and censoring and surveilling Americans and interfering with our elections. Following my first discussion with President Trump, I tried unsuccessfully to open similar discussions with Vice President Harris. Vice President Harris declined to meet or even to speak with me. Suspending my candidacy is a heart-rending decision for me, but I'm convinced that it's the best hope for ending the Ukraine war and ending the chronic disease epidemic that is eroding our nation's vitality from the inside, and for finally protecting free speech. I feel a moral obligation to use this opportunity to save millions of American children, above all things. In case some of you don't realize how dire the condition is of our children's health and chronic disease in general, I would urge you to view Dr. Carlson's recent interview with Callie Means and his sister, Dr. Casey Means, who is the top graduate of her class at Stanford Medical School. This is an issue that affects all of us far more directly and urgently than any culture war issue and all the other issues that we obsess on and that are tearing apart our country. This is the most important issue. Therefore, it has the potential to bring us together. So let me share a little bit about why I believe it's so urgent. Today, 2/3, we spend more on healthcare than any country on earth, twice what they pay in Europe. And yet we have the worst health outcomes of any nation in the world. We're about 79th in health outcomes behind Costa Rica and Nicaragua and Mongolia and other countries. Nobody has a chronic disease burden like we have. And during the COVID epidemic, we had the highest body count of any country in the world. We had 16% of the COVID deaths, and we only have 4.2% of the world's population. And CDC says that's because we are the sickest people on earth. We have the highest chronic disease rate on earth. And the average American who died from COVID had 3.8 chronic diseases. So these were people who had immune system collapse, who had mitochondrial dysfunction. and no other country has anything like this. 2/3 of American adults and children suffer from chronic health issues. 50 years ago, that number was less than 1%. So we've gone from 1% to 66%. In America, 74% of Americans are now overweight or obese, and 50% of our children. 120 years ago, when somebody was obese, they were sent to the circus. There were case reports done about them. Obesity was almost unknown. In Japan, the childhood obesity rate is 3% compared to 50% here. Half of Americans have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. When my uncle was president and I was a boy, juvenile diabetes was effectively non-existent. A typical pediatrician would see one case of diabetes during his entire career, a 40 or 50-year career. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through his office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic, and the mitochondrial disorder that caused diabetes also causing Alzheimer's, which is now classified as diabetes, and it's costing this country more than our military budget every year. There's been an explosion of neurological illnesses that I never saw as a kid: ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, Tourette's syndrome, narcolepsy, ASD, Asperger's, autism. In the year 2000, the autism rate was 1 in 1,500. Now autism rates in kids are 1 in 36, according to CDC nationally. Nobody's talking about this. 1 in every 22 kids in California has autism. And this is a crisis that 77% of our kids are too disabled to serve in the United States military. What is happening to our country? And why isn't this in the headlines every single day? There's nobody else in the world that is experiencing this. This is only happening in America. About 18%, and by the way, there has been no change in diagnosis, which the industry sometimes like to say. There has been no change in screening. This is a change in incidence. In my generation, 70-year-old men, the autism rates are about 1 in 10,000. In my kids' generation, 1 in 34. I'll repeat, in California, 1 in 22. Why are we letting this happen? Why are we allowing this to happen to our children? These are the most precious assets that we have in this country. How can we let this happen to them? About 18% of American teens now have fatty liver disease. That's like 1 out of every 5. That disease, when I was a kid, only affected late-stage alcoholics who were elderly. Cancer rates are skyrocketing in the young and the old. Young adult cancers are up 79%. 1 in 4 American women is on antidepressant medication. 40% of teens have a mental health diagnosis. And 15% of high schoolers are on Adderall, and 500,000 children on SSRIs. So what's causing this suffering? I'll name 2 culprits. First, and the worst, is ultra-processed food. About 70% of American children's diet is ultra-processed. That means industrial manufactured in a factory. These foods consist primarily of processed sugar, ultra-processed grains, and seed oils. Laboratory scientists many of them formerly worked for the cigarette industry, which purchased all the big food companies in the 1970s and 80s, deployed thousands of scientists to figure out new chemicals to make the food more addictive. And these ingredients didn't exist 100 years ago. Humans aren't biologically adapted to eat them. Hundreds of these chemicals are now banned in Europe, but ubiquitous in American processed foods. The second culprit is toxic chemicals in our food, our medicine, and our environment. Pesticides, food additives, pharmaceutical drugs, and toxic waste permeate every cell of our bodies. The assault on our children's cells and hormones is unrelenting. To name just one problem, many of these chemicals increase estrogen. Because young children are ingesting so many of these hormone disruptors, America's puberty rate is now occurring at age 10 to 13, which is 6 years earlier than girls were reaching puberty in 1900. Our country has the earliest puberty rates of any continent on the earth. And no, this isn't because of better nutrition. This is not normal. Breast cancer is also estrogen driven, and it now strikes 1 in 8 women. We are mass poisoning all of our children and our adults. Considering the grievous human cost of this tragic epidemic of chronic disease, it seems almost crass to mention the damage it does to our economy. But I'll say, it is crippling the nation's finances. When my uncle was president, our country spent $0 on chronic disease. Today, government health care spending is almost all for chronic disease. And it's double the military budget. And it is the fastest growing budget item in the federal budget. And chronic disease costs more to the economy as a whole, costs at least $4 trillion, 5 times our military budget. And that's a 20% drag on everything we do and everything we aspire to. Poor and minority communities suffer disproportionately. People who worry about DEI or about bigotry of any kind, this dwarfs anything. We are poisoning the poor. We are systematically poisoning minorities across this country. Industry lobbyists have made sure that most of the food stamp lunch program, about 70% of food stamps and about 70 or 77% of school lunches are processed foods. There's no vegetables. There's nothing that you would want to eat. We are just poisoning the poor citizens, and that's why they have the highest chronic disease burden of anybody, any demographic in our country, and the highest in the world. The same food industry lobbied to make sure that nearly all agricultural subsidies go to commodity crops that are the feedstock of processed food industry. These policies are destroying small farms, and they're destroying our soils. We give about, I think, 8 times as much in subsidies to tobacco than we do to fruits and vegetables. It makes no sense. If we want a healthy country, the good news is that we can change all this. We can change it very, very quickly. America can get healthy again. To do that, we need to do 3 things. First, we need to root out the corruption in our health agencies. Second, we need to change incentives in our healthcare system. And third, we need to inspire Americans to get healthy again. 80% of NIH grants go to people who have conflicts of interest. These are the people, virtually everybody who sits, Joe Biden just appointed a new panel to NIH to decide the food recommendations. And they're all people who are from the industry. They're all people who are from the processed food companies. They're deciding what Americans, here is healthy. And the recommendations on the food pyramid and what goes to our school lunch programs, what go to the program, the Swiss program, the food stamp programs, they're all corrupted and conflicted individuals. These agencies, the FDA, USDA, and CDC, all of them are controlled by giant for-profit corporations. 75% of the FDA's funding doesn't come from taxpayer, it comes from pharma. And pharma executives and consultants and lobbyists cycle in and out of these agencies with President Trump's backing. I'm going to change that. We're going to staff these agencies with honest scientists and doctors who are free from industry funding. We're going to make sure the decisions of consumers, doctors, and patients are informed by unbiased science. A sick child is the best thing for the pharmaceutical industry. When American children or adults get sick with a chronic condition, they're put on medication for their entire life. Imagine what will happen when Medicare starts paying for Ozempic, which costs $1,500 a month, and it's being recommended for children as young as 6, all for a condition, obesity, that is completely preventable and barely even existed 100 years ago. And 74% of Americans are obese. The cost, if all of them took their Ozempic prescription, is $3 trillion a year. This is a drug that is made by Novo Nordisk, the biggest company in Europe. It's a Danish company, and the Danish government does not recommend it. It recommends change in diet to treat obesity and exercise. And in our country, the recommendation now is for Ozempic to children at age 6. Novo Nordisk, the biggest company in Europe, and virtually its entire value is based upon its projections of what it's going to sell, of the Ozempic it's going to sell to America. And we have the food lobbyists have a bill in front of Congress today that is backed by the White House, backed by Vice President Harris and President Biden, to allow this to happen. This $3 trillion cost that is going to bankrupt our country. For a fraction of that amount, we could buy organic food for every American family, 3 meals a day, and eliminate diabetes altogether. We're going to bring healthy food back to school lunches. We're going to stop subsidizing the worst foods with our agricultural subsidies. We're going to get toxic chemicals out of our food. We're going to reform the entire food system. And for that, we need new leadership in Washington. Because unfortunately, both the Democrats and the Republican parties are in cahoots with the big food producers, Big Pharma and Big Ag, which are among the DNC's major donors. Vice President Harris has expressed no interest in addressing this issue. 4 more years of Democratic rule will complete the consolidation of corporate and neocon power, and our children will be the ones who suffer most. I got involved with chronic disease 20 years ago, not because I chose to or wanted to. It was essentially thrust upon me. It was an issue that should have been central to the environmental movement. I was a central leader at that time, but it was widely ignored by all the institutions, including the NGOs, who should have been protecting our kids against toxins. It was an orphaned issue, and I had a weakness for orphans. I watched generations of children get sicker and sicker. I had 11 siblings, and I had 7 kids myself. I was conscious of what was happening in their classrooms and to their friends, and I watched these sick kids, these damaged kids. In that generation, almost all of them are damaged. And nobody in power seemed to care or to even notice. For 19 years, I prayed every morning that God would put me in a position to end this calamity. The chronic disease crisis was one of the primary reasons for my running for president, along with ending censorship in the Ukraine war. It's the reason I've made the heart-wrenching decision to suspend my campaign and to support President Trump. This decision is agonizing for me because of the difficulties it causes my wife and my children and my friends. But I have the certainty that this is what I've meant to do. And that certainty gives me internal peace, even in storms. If I'm given the chance to fix the chronic disease crisis and reform our food production, I promise that within 2 years, we will watch chronic disease burden lift.
So that right there is independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. A lot to unpack in that speech there, Chris.
Right. He thanked his campaign for working 10-hour days, going without sleep for 16 months, perhaps, working in blizzards. He heavily criticized the Democratic Party, specifically pointing out lawsuits that the Democratic Party filed against him in order to get him off the ballot or to ensure that he can't get on the ballot in states that he was trying to get on. during this presidential election.
Yeah, a lot also about the media. He talked a lot about what he sees as the decline of democracy, of legitimate democracy, in his view, in America. Also very interesting to note that he said he is not terminating his presidential campaign, he's simply suspending it. So it's not over yet. He's still got a lot to say, but very interesting stuff there.
Right, that is key there. He's not terminating his campaign, he's suspending it. People can still vote for him. However, in 10 battleground states that he views as pivotal to the outcome of this election, he is going to remove his name from those ballots, and he urged voters not to vote for him there because his campaign has made it clear that they view the Kamala Harris campaign as a bigger threat to the country. And he cited how Donald Trump's stance on Ukraine alone is enough for him to endorse Trump.
That's right, Chris, but very important to note he has not officially endorsed former President Trump yet, still laying out his views about this whole situation right now.
That's absolutely right.
All right, coming up, a federal program could potentially provide a path to citizenship for nearly 500,000 illegal immigrants. Now opponents are suing the program. Find out more after the break here on NTD News.
A painting that has true beauty. I imagine it's like a door. The artist holds the key to open the door and bring people to a purer world. A world where people are more compassionate.
The one-time drug dealer turned pastor, along with 2 others, will be executed at 12 midnight local time.
I thought this would be our final run ever. We had made millions and millions of dollars, but God had other plans.
We'll walk straight out of here, pretend to be the media.
This pathetic maggot got caught trying to escape my prison.
He's a changed person. He's a new man.
My name is Peter Lowe, and I will be executed in 2 hours. Why am I being executed, you ask?
Salvation is a gift.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
Welcome back. Joining us live now to discuss Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s speech and announcement is co-founder of Restore Liberty, retired Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb. Colonel, good to see you. Let's start off first. break it down to simple terms for our viewers. What exactly did RFK Jr. talk about in his speech, and what was that big announcement there?
Yeah, Fiona, I think what most people heard at the beginning was Kennedy excoriating the Democratic Party specifically, and all those who were trying to crush his campaign, who were taking him to court, who were squelching his free speech. And he said some critical things there about how they don't fear the lies, they fear the truth, how in the process of trying to so-called save democracy, they were destroying democracy. And at that point, that was when most people really kind of realized that he was taking his own party ultimately to task, that he left. And after that, it kind of turned into more of what seemed like a positioning for potential future cabinet appointments under a Trump administration should Trump win. And people started kind of tuning it out a little bit just because of how long it was going. But the key points that I think need to be taken away from is that he withdrew his name, or is withdrawing his name, from those 10 key battleground states because he doesn't want to affect the overall election, to make sure that the person that he does support, which is Trump, has the best chance possible. But he's also giving all those workers and campaign volunteers a place to go vote for him in those states where he says the Republicans don't have a chance to win anyways, places probably like a Massachusetts and other blue states. So in my opinion, he's threading a needle. There's some risk involved, but I understand the strategy. And I think once we do that and lay it out for folks, they'll grasp onto the strategy, but we won't realize whether it was successful or not until November.
Yeah, that's very interesting to note. Now, he talked a lot about what he believes is a decline in legitimate democracy in the U.S. right now. He says, that the U.S. has always been this example for the rest of the world in terms of what democracy should be like. And he, as you mentioned, talking about what he believes are unfair strategies by the Democratic Party, as well as the unfairness of the media. But he's always been very adamant about staying in the race despite all of these challenges. Why do you think he's choosing now to make this announcement and remove his name from these 10 ballots, these 10 states?
Well, I don't think he sees a path forward to victory, but he does see a path where if he were to stay on those battleground states, that he could affect the elections by just enough votes to where Kamala Harris could pull off a victory, and then all of America loses at that point. So this is the part where I say he's threading the needle, because he doesn't want to affect the electoral college results in those critical battleground states and end up with a Harris administration as a result. But he also doesn't want to discount the work of all the volunteers and all those people who know that he is the guy they want to vote for. And so that's what I call the threading the needle piece. He's kind of holding to the middle ground, trying to satisfy both sides of this with a strategy that he thinks will ultimately result in the better victory, which would be Trump. So we'll see if that works out or not, but it's not too far away in the future for us to see it.
And in terms of his relationship with former President Trump, the two of them have not always been eye to eye on all policies and all issues in the country. But he did mention today in his speech that Trump's stance on Ukraine alone would warrant his endorsement. And Trump actually just a couple minutes ago came out and thanked RFK Jr. for his support, I guess you could say. So what do you think this says about the relationship between these two candidates now? Are we going to see a possible, perhaps, cabinet position for Kennedy if former President Trump were to win?
I think that's what the second half of Kennedy's speech was about, was showing where he's at with regards to things like health and food and the status of our nation regarding those. And that positions him well for a potential cabinet appointment or some sort of position in administration where Trump wins. I think this is what we could describe as fence mending between the two candidates. And ultimately, the best thing we could have seen was Kennedy showing up at a Trump rally and actually saying he endorses him. But I think the message here ultimately is the media is going to take this speech as a Trump endorsement and advertise it as such, with or without any formal statement from Kennedy at this point, which could be still to come.
So with these latest developments, where do you see the presidential race headed now, and where do you see Kennedy's supporters going?
I think most of Kennedy's supporters will vote for him in those states where he stays on the ballot. It's anybody's guess ultimately where many of them will go when it comes to those battleground states, but I would say that majority of them, even if just barely, will go towards Trump because of what Kennedy's message was here about the Democratic Party seeking to destroy all those things that America stands for at this point in history. So in some of those battleground states, we saw Trump losing sometimes by 5, 10, or 12,000 votes. And if Kennedy dropping out of those specific battleground state races makes that difference up, then his strategy would be effective. And in that case, the fence mending between Trump and Kennedy will continue probably into a future administration.
And just to close things out, Kennedy himself did mention during his speech he's keeping his name on the ballot in most states, and he still seems to believe he might have a slight chance to get to the White House. What do you say about that?
I think he's a little bit more realistic than that and realizes that there really is no path for him to the White House at this point, and he knows that he has to do his best to make sure that Trump wins. But he also wants to give people a choice who see Kennedy as their preferred choice regardless, and they're just going to vote for him. So I don't see him having a chance at all to get into the White House at this point.
All right, Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, co-founder of Restore Liberty, thank you for your insight.
Thanks, Fiona. Have a good day.
Next, from Kennedy to Trump, former President Donald Trump is giving remarks in Las Vegas, Nevada. He said he would let Americans keep 100% of their tips if he's elected. Let's tune into that now.
Ownership among Hispanics also hit a record high. And for working families and small businesses like this one, this is not a small business, this is a big business. But we'll call it a small business for tax purposes, okay? We delivered the largest tax cuts and regulation cuts in the history of our country. We achieved energy independence, and we built the greatest economy any time in the history of the world. It was the strongest economy anybody had ever seen. Under Kamala, it has been one disaster after another. Take a look at the border. You want to really see a disaster. I was there yesterday. What a disaster. After Kamala cast the tie-breaking votes on the bills that caused the worst inflation in decades, the Harris price hikes have cost the typical Nevada family. And you take a look. So the Nevada family spent $32,000 more under this horrible regime of people that don't know what the hell they're doing. Now Kamala is promising communist price controls on food. Her plan will cause catastrophic inflation, shortages of rationing. The restaurant industry will be obliterated. And I say welcome to 1929. Do you know what 1929 was? You don't want to know, right? You don't want to know, but that's where they're headed if they do what they're planning. Kamala is also pledging the largest tax hikes in American history, and Las Vegas hospitality industry would actually never recover from that. It's the largest tax hikes in history. And you heard her words last night. She doesn't talk about that. You notice they talked, I guess you mentioned the Trump name many, many times, like 19 or 21 or something. She didn't mention the border. She didn't mention inflation. She didn't mention the bad economy. She didn't mention crime. She didn't mention any of the things that she's supposed to be mentioning, but she mentioned Trump 21 times or some crazy thing. And she mentioned thank you about 50 times. Did you see the beginning? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I said, what the hell is wrong with her? But then she recovered. She did much better. But she didn't tell anything. She didn't say anything. She talked about her family, how beautiful San Francisco was. I put out a note. I said, well, the word "was" is very important because what the hell happened? Under her, as district attorney, she destroyed San Francisco, and then as the Attorney General, she ruined the state of California with her stupid policies. But she was showing her beautiful life in San Francisco, and everybody was joking. That was before she destroyed it. She's supported the idea of a 70 to 80% tax hike. I don't think the man behind me will be happy. You wouldn't mind paying 80% in taxes, would you? What the hell? He says, whatever's good for America, right? 80% tax rate, and now she's even pushing a tax on unrealized capital gains. In other words, the appraisers are going to make a lot of money, which will soon be applied to small business owners, and you will be forced to sell your restaurant immediately, and the new owner won't do the job, and this restaurant will be closed. But we're not going to let that happen, Javier. We're going to make it bigger, better, stronger, just like the country. So this is really beyond social, because she's a socialist, but she's really a Marxist. A Marxist is a step beyond. Remember how you said at the State of the Union, we will not have socialism in America. We will never be a socialist country. I was right. We skipped over socialism. We're down to communism. Okay. I was right about it, though. I'd like to be right. This is, thank you. I like that woman. Where are you? I like that. She said, you're always right. But this is beyond socialism. This is the beginning of communism. It really is, and we can't let that happen. You look at Venezuela, you look at some of these countries that we all know so well, and what happened to them can happen to us. It's just a bigger version. That's where we're headed if this group gets elected. But we'll not let Kamala and the group turn America into a communist nation. We're not going to let it happen. We can't let it happen. I'll cut taxes, and what we're doing is we're cutting taxes, regulations. We're going to defeat inflation, rapidly bring prices down, and make America affordable again. It's not affordable. People can't buy, as Javier said before, they can't buy sneakers, they can't buy anything. To help seniors, we will have no tax on Social Security benefits. That's a big deal. I don't know. I'm trying to figure for restaurant workers, and all workers, tip workers, it's no tax on tips, but the Social Security, no tax, because they've driven them out of business. These people have suffered, and they've done things the right way. They've saved, and then the inflation destroyed them. And we're going to have no tax on Social Security benefits, and that's a big thing, and it's very important. Just as important as what I said before about the no tax on tips. Kamala wants to bring sky-high California energy prices to the rest of the country, and they have just destroyed California. First time ever, more people left California than came in. They've never had that before because they have the best weather, the most beautiful land. Everything is so good, but they have a terrible governor. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing, but he's got a great line of bullshit. You know? He's got a good line of stuff. We're doing great in California. You know the U-Haulets and the trailers and stuff? They go to Texas, Florida, other states, right? And they don't know what to do. They only go one way. They want to try and get them. They want to try and get them back. They have a hard time bringing them back. They don't know what to do. But under the extremist net zero energy policies, what you call them, the extremist, the radical people, they're really hurting our country and ultimately destroying our country. The environmental extremists, we call them. Nevada electricity prices have already increased by 50%. So it's 50%. Do you see them going up there? I mean, you see them. They've gone up by 50% over a very short period of time, and I'll unleash American energy, and we'll cut your prices in half. We'll be able to get your energy prices cut in half, and that goes for the whole nation. That's ridiculous that they've increased that much, and you see that. Wow, that's terrible. I'll deliver universal school choice, letting your child go to the public, private, religious, charter school of your choice, the family's choice, and there's something, school choice is a big deal. It's a big deal. Everybody wants school choice. And I'll support our police and stop the crime wave that was caused by this woman. What she's done on the border, she was the border czar. She doesn't want to talk about it. She said, I'm not the border czar. For 4 years, she's the border czar. Now she's not the border czar all of a sudden. You know why? Because People are coming in at levels that nobody's ever seen before. They're coming in by the millions, and they're coming from jails and prisons. They're slightly different meaning. They're coming from mental institutions and insane asylums. They're emptying out so many of their cities of criminals, and they're busing them into the good old USA. They're busing the worst gang members, the worst drug dealers, terrorists, and they're bringing them in and dropping them here. They're saying, if you come back, we're going to kill you. We're going to kill you if you come back, or we'll give you the death penalty, but we're going to kill you if you come back. So they're dropping their criminals here. They're emptying their jails and dumping everybody, and these are tough people too, and they're dumping them into our country. And you take a look at the prison populations all over the world. We're not just talking about South America, all over the world, the Congo in Africa. Many people are coming out of the Congo, and they're coming from jails in the Congo. So their jails are being emptied, the mental institutions are being emptied, and they're all coming to the USA. There'll be customers very shortly of Javier's fine restaurant. What's happening is horrible. It's horrible, and they're destroying our country, and we're going to do the largest deportation in the history of America. We have no choice. And you see the death. You see the death and destruction they're causing. I was at the border yesterday with some people whose families were just obliterated by these horrible, horrible people that have been allowed to come in. And remember, terrorists are coming in at levels we've never seen before. Only bad things can happen. So I'll secure the border, keep radical Islamic terrorists out of our country, and we will do something that's very important. I will prevent World War III. You have World War III is on the cusp. You take a look at what's happening. Biden didn't have a clue what he did with Russia and Ukraine, what that happened. That's a war that should have never started. If I were president, zero chance that would have happened. It would have never, and it didn't for 4 years. Same thing with Israel. October 7th would have never happened. And you know what else? You wouldn't have had that horror show, the most embarrassing day in our history, Afghanistan. And very importantly, you wouldn't have had inflation, because inflation was caused by energy. Now it's caused by everything. And the prices are so high that people are being driven out of business, including a lot of Hispanic people, a lot of black people. What's happening with the black population is they're losing their jobs to the people that are pouring across the border. The black population is being decimated. You wait till you see the real numbers that come. They're losing their jobs because Biden and Harris are allowing millions of people to come into our country, and they're taking black people's jobs, African-American jobs. They're taking those jobs, and a lot of those jobs are Hispanic jobs too. And the next thing that's going to be hit, I can tell you union leaders, the unions are going to be hit really, really hard. So I just want to end by saying that November 5th is a very important day. I believe it will go down as the most important day in the history of our country. That means you have to vote. It's going to be a big vote. If we win this state, if we win Nevada, we're going to win something that's going to be very, very special. We're going to win the whole thing. If we win Nevada, we're going to win the whole thing. And I don't know how the hell we can lose it. I've never seen such support. The support we have. So to Javier and his family, it's nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. I like that group over there. They're a little bit frisky, but I like you very much. So I just want to thank everybody here. You're incredible people. I'm behind you 100%. November 5th, you're going to vote a little earlier than that, but whatever you got to vote. Make sure your vote is secure, because remember, they cheat like hell. Make sure, and again, we win this state, we win the whole thing, and we're going to turn our country around. So thank you very much. Thanks very much, Javier. Thank you, everybody.
That was former President Donald Trump giving remarks at an Italian-Mexican fusion restaurant in Las Vegas, Nevada. He's talking about his no tax on tips policy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Chris. Very fitting to be making a speech about that policy in a restaurant.
Right, makes sense.
Exactly. Touched a lot on some other policies as well, but just a lot of information that he's repeated multiple times already.
Right, exactly. He's also set to speak later this afternoon, perhaps this evening, at a Turning Point Action student group event in Glendale, Arizona. His campaign last night said that he's expecting a special guest, though we don't know who that is, that could be at the Glendale event. And there's speculation that it could be RFK Jr., who has just announced that he's dropping out of the race. All right, moving on.
Several media outlets report that at least 5 Secret Service agents have been placed on leave following last month's assassination attempt on former President Trump.
Fox and CBS reported that those on leave include the head of the Secret Service's Pittsburgh office.
Critics say there were serious security lapses at the July 13th rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. A primary concern is how the would-be assassin Thomas Crooks was able to access a nearby rooftop with a direct line of sight to the podium in the first place.
Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle initially declined to resign after the assassination attempt, but ultimately stepped down after significant pressure from Capitol Hill. Trump held his first outdoor rally since the attack in North Carolina on Wednesday. He spoke from behind a shield of bulletproof glass.
The Justice Department filed an antitrust lawsuit today against real estate software company RealPage.
Attorney General Merrick Garland said the firm is engaging in an illegal scheme that allows landlords to coordinate rental price hikes.
We allege that this software is developed, marketed, and sold to enable landlords to sidestep vigorous competition in the rental market. Competing landlords agree to submit to RealPage on a daily basis their most sensitive, non-public information, including rental rates, lease terms, and projected vacancies. RealPage then combines this data from competing landlords and feeds it into an algorithm that provides real-time pricing recommendations back to the competing landlords.
According to the suit, RealPage is violating antitrust laws through its algorithm. The DOJ claims the algorithm allows landlords to align their prices and avoid competition that would keep rent down. The government points to statements by RealPage executives themselves. The DOJ says those comments show higher-ups realized they were hindering competition in the rental housing market.
In June, RealPage called the claims false and misleading. The company said landlords decide their own rent prices, are free to reject its recommendations. The attorneys general of 8 states have joined the lawsuit.
Opponents are suing to end a federal program that could potentially provide a path to citizenship for nearly 500,000 immigrants without legal status. 16 Republican-led states filed a suit today to halt a program launched by President Joe Biden back in June. In court filings, they argue that the Biden administration bypassed Congress to create a pathway to citizenship for what they describe as blatant political purposes. The policy, which began accepting applications on Monday, allows spouses without legal status to apply for something called parole in place.
This grants permission to stay in the U.S., apply for a green card, and eventually pursue citizenship. Many Republicans are strongly opposing the policy, contending that it is essentially a form of amnesty for people who broke the law. The program has sparked significant controversy in an election year where immigration remains a critical issue.
An appeals court today upheld Maryland's licensing requirements for people looking to buy handguns. The Fourth Circuit's ruling reverses a decision last year that found the 2013 law unconstitutional. Maryland passed the Firearms Safety Act in the wake of the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in Newtown, Connecticut. The law requires would-be handgun buyers to submit fingerprints for a background check. Prospective owners must also take a 4-hour safety training course. They then have to wait up to 30 days before undergoing the rest of the usual process to purchase the firearm. Lawyers for the gun rights group Maryland Shall Issue argue that the law violates the Second Amendment. In its 2016 lawsuit, the organization called the measures unjustifiable and overwhelming burdens on law-abiding citizens.
Coming up, the real estate industry is adjusting to new rules, drastically changing how realtors can make money. We check in on some industry professionals. We'll have that and more after the break.
When I started MyPillow, it was just a problem solution, one product company. Well, since then, with the help of my dedicated employees, we now have hundreds of products, some you might not even know about. To get the word out, we're having a $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. And for the first time ever, our 6-pack towel sets, you guessed it, just $25. Our brand new 4-pack dish towels, $25. And I've never done this before. Premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, any size, any loft level, even king size for only $25. And there's so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code for our $25 extravaganza. Order $75 and over, your entire order ships absolutely free.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now, Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G.
And I'm Chris Beers.
Is an interest rate cut finally on the horizon? Hear Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's latest speech today.
Now that Walmart is out, will other investors follow? China's JD.com now has to prove itself against e-commerce competition.
Realtors tell NTD the industry is left scratching its head after new rules for buyer's agents. We have the details.
A federal program that could potentially provide a path to citizenship for nearly 500,000 immigrants without legal status is being sued by opponents.
The Justice Department files an antitrust lawsuit against RealPage. What Attorney General Merrick Garland says the real estate software company is doing with rental prices.
Strong winds send a trampoline flying onto a roof, and a pair of twin twisters kick up water off Florida's coast.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
As RFK Jr. endorses former President Trump, speculation is growing that the two might join forces tonight at a campaign event in Phoenix, Arizona. Meanwhile, the Trump campaign is citing data to say the new endorsement will help Trump in battleground states. Joining us live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao, who's in Phoenix, Arizona, where Trump will speak later tonight. Good afternoon, Iris. Good to see you. How's Trump and his campaign responding to the breaking news today?
Good afternoon to both of you. So the Trump campaign is applauding RFK Jr.'s new endorsement, with Trump just now speaking at an event in Las Vegas, Nevada, and calling RFK Jr. a great guy, and saying how he's respected by everybody and the endorsement is big. Meanwhile, we have heard Trump speaking yesterday at the border in Tucson, Arizona, when asked by a reporter about potential endorsement from RFK Jr., and that's what he said yesterday. Well, yesterday, Trump said that how the big endorsement would be potentially agree on every issue. Kamala Harris knows there's more that unites us than divides us, including respect for our rights, public safety, protecting our freedoms, and opportunity for us all. And that's exactly the theme she was repeating last night at the DNC during his keynote address. And of course, we're waiting for Trump to take the stage tonight. That's right after Harris's speech last night. And we expect him to respond more in detail to her speech at the Democratic National Convention, and also potentially reveal to us what kind of path lays ahead for his potential cooperation with RFK Jr. RFK Jr. in his press conference today to say how Trump campaign invited him to enlist him in a potential Trump administration. So that will be something to really look out for as we wait for Trump to speak more in detail about what impact that endorsement will have. Back to you.
Great reporting as always, Iris. Thank you so much. Next, the Supreme Court has blocked some of Arizona's proof of citizenship requirements for the November election in a 5-4 decision yesterday. The High Court declined to revive parts of a Republican-backed Arizona law. The law could have barred thousands of voters from casting a ballot or voting by mail. Justices left in place a hold against part of the law that required voters to document their U.S. citizenship to vote in this year's presidential election. But the court allowed the state to enforce other proof of citizenship requirements to register for state and local elections. A few dozen protesters clashed briefly with Chicago police on the edge of Union Park during the final hours of the Democratic National Convention last night. The small group left over from the earlier demonstration planned to march toward the convention center, but they were blocked by rows of police in riot gear who pushed into the group, shouting, "Move back." Several of the protesters surged forward, with some swinging wooden signs at the officers. The group has since retreated to the park, where an organizer said they plan to regroup. Police ordered all media to leave the area, warning over a loudspeaker, If you fail to comply, you will be in violation of law and we will place you into custody. Next, the White House just confirmed today that President Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, is set to visit China next week. Here's White House national security spokesperson John Kirby earlier.
As for Jake's trip to Beijing, this was a follow-on coming out of the Woodside Summit back in November of last year. And I think Jake will also talk to Minister Wang about things, obviously, that we're still struggling with in terms of this relationship with China.
Sullivan will talk to China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi, but there's no further information on whether the senior U.S. official will meet China's top leader Xi Jinping. Kirby said Sullivan will bring up a series of issues impacting the U.S. relationship with China. Topics such as China's support for Russia in the war with Ukraine, tensions in the South China Sea and around Taiwan are expected to be on the agenda. And things that Washington and Beijing have agreed to work on together will also be discussed, such as maintaining communication channels and preventing measures of fentanyl precursor crisis. This trip marks Sullivan's first visit to China since he joined the Biden administration and his fifth meeting with China's Wang Yi. The Biden administration has been regularly sending high-ranking officials to China as part of its China policy, keeping high-level communication open between the two superpowers.
An appeals court today upheld Maryland's licensing requirements for people looking to buy handguns. The Fourth Circuit's ruling reverses a decision last year that found the 2013 law unconstitutional. Maryland passed the Firearms Safety Act in the wake of the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in Connecticut. The law requires would-be handgun buyers to submit fingerprints for a background check. Prospective owners must also take a 4-hour safety training course. They then have to wait up to 30 days before undergoing the rest of the usual process to purchase the firearm. Lawyers for the gun rights group Maryland Shall Issue argue that the law violates the Second Amendment. In its 2016 lawsuit, the organization called the measures unjustifiable and overwhelming burdens on law-abiding citizens. Starting this weekend, Floridians can stock up on storm supplies at a discount.
A sales tax holiday will begin providing an opportunity for residents to prepare for storms as the state heads into the peak hurricane season. NTD's Christina Corona has more details on the discount.
During the disaster preparedness sales tax holiday, consumers can purchase items such as batteries, pet supplies, portable generators, and more without paying taxes starting Saturday, August 24th through September 6th. This tax break is part of a package approved by lawmakers and Governor Ron DeSantis earlier this year. Shoppers can save on taxes for various items, including reusable ice packs priced at $20 or less, portable radios, fuel tanks, and battery packs costing $50 or less, food storage coolers at $60 or less, tarps at $100 or less, and portable generators priced at $3,000 or less. The tax exemptions cover items such as wet dog or cat food priced at $10 or less, pet leashes at $20 or less, cat litter at $25 or less, pet beds at $40 or less, and over-the-counter pet medications, pet carriers, and bags of dry dog or cat food costing $100 or less. Items can be purchased at most stores or online to qualify for the sales tax exemption. Hurricane season typically intensifies in mid-August, peaking around September 10th. This year, experts predict an above-average season with over 20 named storms expected by November. Christina Corona, NTD News.
Opponents are suing to end a federal program that could potentially provide a path to citizenship for nearly 500,000 immigrants without legal status. 16 Republican-led states filed a suit today to halt a program launched by Biden in June. In court filings, they argue that the Biden administration bypassed Congress to create a pathway to citizenship for what they describe as blatant political purposes. The policy, which began accepting applications on Monday, allows spouses without legal status to apply for something called parole in place.
This grants
We all enjoy it.
The guitar group practices twice a week on Tuesdays and Saturdays.
We play a lot for seniors that have memory issues as they get older, and but we're playing the songs that they listened to when they were teenagers on the radio. And with every group of Alzheimer's patients or memory care patients, we end up getting them to sing along on a number of songs. Yeah.
Each member has their own personal reason for joining.
I have arthritis, and as I get older, the arthritis gets worse, and I know I have to keep playing, otherwise my hands will get much worse. So this has been a good way to keep in shape.
I've always wanted to play guitar, and I never really had the opportunity because of life, kids and jobs and everything. I finally found this group, which I was looking for and thought I didn't even exist, and there it was in my own backyard.
Despite their different motivations, they all share a common feeling.
Nothing better than playing music and having fun. I just can't think of anything that's more fun.
Oh, we loved it. It was so nice to come to the park and, you know, just a nice surprise. I've been here a few times. I haven't heard this band before, but me and my daughter just were singing along and clapping, and it was a great time. Thank you.
The Rochester Satellites perform at Rochester Park from June to August.
Is an interest rate cut finally on the horizon? We hear Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's latest speech.
The real estate industry is adjusting to new rules. The old ways of doing business are out. We check in on how people are adapting. That and more after the break.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is it, the culmination of everything our young athlete has worked for these past months. He's filled with determination. You can see it in his face. Is today the day he overcomes? And here we go. There is no defense in the world that will keep him at bay. He's on fire. Nothing can stop him. Watch him as he heads towards the goal. Oh, he's blocked hard, but that doesn't stop him. He's a warrior. He's back up. His eyes are on the goal. He's set up for the shot. He shoots. Goal!
Achieving goals like this is only possible with the monthly support of people just like you.
Please call the number on your screen right now and give your monthly support to Shriners Hospitals for Children so other children can reach their goals too.
If you give just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day, we will send you your very own Love to the Rescue blanket as a reminder of the love you're giving us. Because of monthly support of people like you, nothing is stopping me from achieving my goals.
And here we go. There is no defense in the world that will keep him at bay. He's going left. Oh, he fakes right and continues. Look at those moves. He takes the shot. Goal! Please call or go online now. If operators are busy, call again or go to loveshriners.org to give right away. Your monthly gift helps kids achieve their goals. Goal!
Welcome back to Newsroom. For today's Business Matters, we have with us Don Ma. Don, it's good to see you. What is happening in the business world?
So yeah, a lot happening. I'll get started right away on that. And first, I want to go to SpaceX. It's about to embark on one of its riskiest missions yet. So next week, the aerospace company will attempt the first ever private spacewalk. It's also going to test new equipment, including slim spacesuits and a cabin with no airlock. A billionaire entrepreneur, a retired military fighter pilot, and 2 SpaceX employees are scheduled for launch on Tuesday for the 5-day mission. And next, driverless rides could be en route to Uber. The rideshare company has teamed up with General Motors Cruise for a multi-year partnership. Cruise is trying to revive its robo-taxi business. It stopped operations after one of its driverless vehicles dragged a pedestrian last October. This was after a human driver hit her. Both CEOs have expressed that they believe autonomous vehicles can be used safely, and the driverless ride option could be offered as soon as next year. Meanwhile, Subway is joining the fast food value wars in terms of their menu by slashing the price of its footlong subs, and this comes as other chains like McDonald's, Burger King, and Starbucks have cut prices as well to lure back customers who are balking at rising fast food prices. And starting on Monday, Subway will sell any footlong sandwich for $6.99. So that is a steep discount, considering that some footlongs can cost as much as $14 in some cities. However, though, the deal has a catch. The offer is only available via its app or website with the code 699FL, and the limited time offer ends on September 8th. All right, the big news in the financial world today is Powell, Federal Reserve, signaling that lower interest rates are finally on the horizon. Chair Jerome Powell delivered a keynote speech at an annual gathering of central bankers and economists in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Take a listen.
Overall, the economy continues to grow at a solid pace, but the inflation and labor market data show an evolving situation. The upside risks to inflation have diminished, and the downside risks to employment have increased. The time has come for policy to adjust. The direction of travel is clear, and the timing and pace of rate cuts will depend on incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks.
It appears that Powell's latest comments opened the door wide open here for the first interest rate cut since 2020. It's slated for the Fed's upcoming policy meeting on September 17th and the 18th. The upcoming decision to cut rates is a sign that potentially officials feel confident enough that price pressures are coming under control, but also that the economy is weakening. Powell said the Fed will do everything it can to support a strong labor market as it makes further progress toward price stability. All right, joining me now is Brian McCarthy. He's the chief strategist at Macro Lens. Brian, how are you doing?
Good. Hey, Don, how are you?
I'm good as well. So Powell's speech today, did it make it clear that there are likely a series of rate cuts, or how deep the cuts will be, do you think?
Yeah, there's a fascinating dynamic at the Fed now. Chair Powell basically pre-announced a September cut. Didn't give us any indication of whether that might be 25 or 50 basis points. I found his comments to be very aggressive. He said, "We do not seek or welcome further cooling in the labor market." He said the current level of the policy rate gives them ample room to respond to any risks. Unfortunately for Powell, and I think unfortunately for the economy, because I believe Powell's stance is the correct one, but unfortunately for him, he is in a minority on his own committee. Now, he is the chairman, and there is a history of the chairman sort of knocking heads to get what they want. It's not clear to me that Powell has that level of political capital at this point after the egregious inflationary error he engineered in 2021 and 2022. But we heard an array of other Fed officials in the couple days leading up to his speech, all suggesting they were much more relaxed than he came off today, generally sounding okay with a 25 basis point sort of adjustment to policy. But none gave us the kind of tone Powell did, which again, I think is the correct stance. Hey, we're behind the curve. This labor market is clearly slowing. Historically, once it slows, that slowdown, the deceleration tends to gather steam, and it seems like we're on the cusp of that kind of situation. So Powell himself ready to act aggressively, but he's really got some work to do to drag his colleagues along if that's the path he wants to pursue.
So here's my question, though. He definitely acknowledged the weakness in the labor market. But is the situation worse than what he thinks, or is it better than what he thinks?
My own view is it's worse. We see aggressive cuts priced into the interest rate markets now. So the federal funds rate is currently around 5.3%. The market sees that being cut down to around 3% over the next a little less than 2 years. So reasonably aggressive expectations in the market. Market participants are very split over the outlook for economic growth because, frankly, if you look at the last few GDP reports, they were reasonably robust. However, my view is that this employment market has been showing underlying signs of weakness for many, many months. It's over a year now where the job gains are concentrated almost solely in government jobs, which are starting to slow, and in healthcare, which is not a demand story. Healthcare jobs are growing because people are finally coming back to want to take those jobs. It's a labor supply story. But if you look those two sectors, pretty serious weakness across industries in terms of payroll growth. And of course, we've seen the unemployment rate tick up almost a full percentage point now from its 2023 lows. That kind of move is usually associated with impending recession. So I think the Fed is late. I think the stock market is telling them that 25 basis points isn't going to be enough, that they need to get on their horse. I think Powell gets that message, but again, it's not clear to me a majority of his colleagues on the committee do.
All right, last question here, Brian. Let me read this to you. Powell said that the time for policy change the time has come for the policy to adjust. The direction of travel is clear. You mentioned some of the quotes earlier. Is the Fed declaring a victory here over inflation?
It sounds like it. Yes, he might as well have said mission accomplished. My own view, again, is that is completely justified. We've had very good inflation numbers for the last several months. We have break-even inflation rates in the inflation-indexed bond market, suggesting that the Fed is set to slightly undershoot its inflation target over the next 5 years, say. So all signs, all the tea leaves as I read them, say that they are on course for at target or below target inflation. And if the economy is weakening as sharply as I think it is, they need to get ahead of that. Or, again, the history is they get behind the curve and they cut 25 when the economy needs 50 and it gets away from them. And then they end up having to do something really, really super aggressive. So if they want to avoid that, they're better to start early. I think they're already late. 50 would be better next month, but it sounds like Powell's not going to be able to get that done.
All right, Brian, Macro Lens, thank you very much today.
Thank you.
All right, moving on from that, the Justice Department filed an antitrust lawsuit today against real estate software company RealPage. Attorney General Merrick Garland said the firm is engaging in an illegal scheme that allows landlords to coordinate rental price hikes.
We allege that this software is developed, marketed, and sold to enable landlords to sidestep vigorous competition in the rental market. Competing landlords agree to submit to RealPage on a daily basis their most sensitive, non-public information, including rental rates, lease terms, and projected vacancies. RealPage then combines this data from competing landlords and feeds it into an algorithm that provides real-time pricing recommendations back to the competing landlords.
Now, according to the suit, RealPage is violating antitrust laws through its algorithm. The DOJ claims that the algorithm allows landlords to align their prices to avoid competition that will keep rents down. The government points to statements by RealPage executives themselves. DOJ says that those comments show higher-ups realized they were hindering competition in the rental housing market. Now, in June, RealPage called the claims false and misleading. The company said that landlords decide their own rent prices and are free to reject its recommendations. The Attorney General of 8 states have joined the lawsuit. And staying with the real estate industry, it is adapting to new rules. Agents and buyers are still trying to figure out how to adjust. Here's the details on this story.
Before, buyers' agents were in high demand because the home seller paid the agent. But now, the buyer is supposed to negotiate with and pay their agent themselves. The new rule is creating confusion.
It's best described as you're trying to change the oil of the car while the car is still moving. No one is particularly too clear on what these, quote, rules and regulations are.
Broker Cindy Scholes focuses on New York City and the Hamptons. She says many in the industry aren't sure how to proceed.
It was actually quite odd to work with a client without having an agreement. Someone would just, you're going around with them, you have no idea what your actual structure is.
Scholes says she thinks 30% of buyers will leave the industry.
Buyers reps have to work harder than ever. They have to deliver more value.
Peter Gray is the president of Pyramid Real Estate Group, a group that includes buyers' agents. He says his firm had to do more work consulting lawyers and revising contracts. He says from now on, buyers' agents will have to be very sophisticated to be successful because they'll have to persuade buyers to pay for their service.
They've created larger surveys and they've brought to the table more analytics, and they're demonstrating to the buyer all the different options, the pluses and the minuses, and showing also off-market listings.
Gray believes buyers should still get agents because they do provide real value. But he does see many buyers skipping the agent since the new rule.
It might eliminate buyers agents from the market in a lot of ways, right? If buyers know they have to pay commission to an agent for being a buyer, they might just not be a buyer.
Real estate investor Dutch Mendenhall works with real estate agents every day. He says he's always negotiated with agents directly.
Meanwhile, data showing at least 51 congressional Democrats have accepted contributions from top food companies this congressional cycle. And that's despite some Democrats publicly accusing grocery chains of corporate greed. And this is based on a Reuters analysis of Federal Election Commission data. One Democratic campaign defended this by saying that criticizing donors demonstrates independence. So overall donations are up this congressional cycle. Albertsons PAC has tripled its contributions so far compared to 2021 to 2022. Corporate PACs typically donate to both parties. Overall, 58% of Kroger's and Albertsons combined donations went to Republican congressional campaigns this cycle. And Chinese e-commerce retailer JD.com needs to reassure investors, and this is after Walmart pulled all its support. This week, Walmart sold off its nearly $4 billion stake in JD. That raised questions about Beijing-based platforms' ability to withstand a slowed home market and competition. JD set itself apart with its business model. It sells directly to customers and heavily invests in supply chain and logistics. That helped the company double its market share from a decade ago, but that has led to high overhead pressure on profitability. JD's operating margins in the second quarter was about 4%, well below competitors Alibaba and Temu owner PDD Holdings. JD has also shown strategic weakness in its ability to tap into international markets compared to rivals. And Wall Street seemingly all smiles today after Chairman Jerome Powell's speech at Jackson Hole. All three major indexes ending up in the green. As you can see here, Dow up about 1.1%, and the S&P also 1.1%, and the Nasdaq up 1.5%. All eyes are on the now very likely September rate cut and how much that will be. All right, that's all the stories I have for you guys and our viewers today on Business Matters. Chris, Fiona?
Don, it sounds like this Fed rate cut of 25 basis points, to your guest anyway, is too little too late.
Yeah, as he was saying, the Fed is behind the curve, and 25 basis point. If you are behind the curve, perhaps it seemed to him that it was a little small. He was hoping for a 50 basis point cut.
Yeah, and I think this is very interesting to keep in mind, with inflation and all of this, as well with the presidential election going on and inflation being such a big topic for that. Interesting to see how the candidates' policies will impact this as well.
Yeah.
Right, and if the stock market is buoyed by this Fed rate cut or potential more Fed rate cuts going forward, how could that affect the election? Don Ma, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, a deadly prison siege in Russia today. Alleged ISIS terrorists killed staff and took hostages. How Russian snipers ended the hours-long hostage situation.
The one-time drug dealer turned pastor, along with 2 others, will be executed at 12 midnight local time.
I thought this would be our final run ever. We had made millions and millions of dollars, but God had other plans.
We'll walk straight out of here, pretend to be the media.
This pathetic maggot got caught trying to escape my prison.
He's a changed person. He's a new man.
My name is Peter Lowe, and I will be executed in 2 hours. Why am I being executed, you ask?
Salvation is a gift.
Will radical lies determine your child's future, or will timeless truths? Fathom the Good equips children with wisdom against the world. Our homeschool curriculum teaches high schoolers to think critically. We provide primary texts, original content, reasoning tools, and mentoring videos to help them transform America. Teach your children to navigate the world's woke confusion. Teach them to fathom the good.
We've been spending a lot more time than ever at home these days. So maybe now you've just noticed cold air coming in from a couple windows, or that your patio door isn't closing fully, which means you're losing heat in the winter, losing cooling in the summer, losing money all year long. And that means now is the time for new windows and patio doors from Renewal by Andersen. Most installations are usually done in just 1 day. Renewal by Andersen windows and doors can help lower your heating bills and air conditioning bills with their most energy efficient glass available. Only their windows are made with Fibrex material, proven to be 2 times stronger than vinyl, and they're backed by a 20-year warranty. And right now, when you buy 1 window or patio door, get one at 40% off. Plus, there's no money down, no payments for 12 months, and no interest for 12 months. Plus, an additional $200 off your entire purchase.
1-800-968-1443.
When I was growing up, my mom was extremely tidy. We were trained to put things back where we got them from. One day, when I walked into my mom's house, I felt like I walked to someone else's house. There was stuff everywhere, and just growing up the way I grew up, and to see this transition was very alarming.
When Sean talked to me, it was a wake-up call, and that's when I went to the doctor.
Welcome back. A revolt at a Russian prison today. Snipers killed 4 inmates after they fatally stabbed guards and took hostages.
That's right. The perpetrators reportedly said they're part of the terrorist organization ISIS.
Russian media reported that the incident took place at a penal colony some 500 miles from Moscow. The Federal Prison Service says 8 prison employees and 4 convicts had been held hostage. 4 of the staff died of stab wounds. Others are being treated at a hospital. The attackers had reportedly pledged allegiance to ISIS.
Russian President Vladimir Putin addressed the incident before the inmates were shot. Putin said he wanted to hear from Russian officials before taking action. In total, the hostage situation lasted for several hours before the alleged terrorists were shot. Over 500 British academics are urging the UK government to protect free speech in universities. They say people have been cancelled for expressing legal views and that this has serious consequences for everyone. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has this report.
Nearly 600 British academics have signed an open letter urging the Education Secretary to implement free speech protections for universities. The academics warn that if this isn't done, students and staff will continue to be hounded and silenced for the expression of legal opinions. The provisions in Britain's Higher Education Freedom of Speech Act had been due to come into effect at the start of August, but Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson paused the provisions over concerns the Act could expose students to harm and appalling hate speech on campuses. She said she remains committed to free speech and academic freedom. However, Professor David Abulafia from the University of Cambridge says many people are intimidated out of expressing their views.
We've had demonstrations which have indulged in criminal damage. We've had a sense that students feel intimidated over various issues because they can't put alternative views.
The open letter highlighted how hundreds of academics and students have been cancelled and have even lost their jobs for expressing legitimate and legal, if controversial, opinions. It says this has serious consequences for everyone. The academics added that a report published earlier this year by the Academic Freedom Index placed the UK 66th in the Global League table of academic freedom. That's lower than Peru, Burkina Faso, and Georgia. The Department for Education previously raised concerns the Freedom of Speech Act would protect those using hate speech. Abulafia disagrees.
This is complete nonsense. In fact, the Equality Act of 2010 does set out quite clearly where the boundaries lie.
The open letter points out that English law already provides strong protections against harassment and incitement to hatred, which override free speech rights. Abulafia says what the Act aims for is the promotion of civil debate.
Putting contrary views in front of an audience which understands that, of course, they can make objections, but the objections need to be made politely, that raising of voices, shouting and so on, waving of flags, that all of this is inappropriate.
He said cancel culture is harming the ability of people in universities to test ideas. But if civil debate can be restored, then universities can be restored to their original function. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
Taiwan wants to remain free from communist control and rejects being ruled by China's Communist Party. Lai visited the frontline island of Kinmen on Friday to mark a key battle with Chinese forces in the 1960s. The island is only a couple of miles away from China's coast, putting it under significant military pressure from Beijing. This is Lai's first trip to Kinmen Island since assuming office in May, and here's what he had to say.
We are no longer trying to retake the mainland, but we are also unwilling to be ruled by the Communist Party. We want to continue a life of democracy, freedom, human rights, and rule of law.
Communist China vows to take over Taiwan and doesn't rule out using force if necessary. To counter this, Taiwan's defense spending for next year will rise 7.7% year-on-year, outpacing its expected economic growth. The goal is to reach 3% of the island's GDP. This is higher than in most democracies around the world. Lai said Taiwan's defense spending will increase every year. It wants to strengthen training and purchase weapons from America. At the same time, Lai says Taiwan is standing shoulder to shoulder with democracies worldwide. When we come back, strong winds sent a trampoline flying onto a roof, and a pair of twin twisters kick up water off Florida's coast. That and more after the break.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
Sama atas الشواذ راح كثير رعب وطبعا هلا يعني أنا بحس بالرعب الكبير بدنا بس نعيش بأمان.
Conflict is raging across the world, and millions of children's lives are being devastated by war, hunger, disease, and poverty. We urgently need your help to reach children in crisis. Please call or go online to give just $10 a month, only 33 cents a day. We need 1,000 new monthly donors this month to help children in crisis around the world and right here at home. You can help us provide food, essentials, and life-saving medical care to children in the most need.
يعني بدنا نعيش زي كل الأطفال بدنا نعيش بحرية وأمان.
In the darkest times, children suffer the most. You can help by calling right now and giving just $10 a month. All we need are 1,000 monthly donors. Please call or go online now with your monthly gift of just $10. Thanks to generous government grants, every dollar you give can have up to 10 times the impact. And when you call with your credit card, we will send you this Save the Children tote bag as a thank you for your support.
وعيت على هاي الدنيا القصف والنزوح والخيمة. أتمنى نعود على بلادنا. شايف لك إنه هذا مستحيل.
Your small monthly donation of just $10 could be the reason a child in crisis survives. Show them they're not alone. Please call or go online to givetosave.org to help save lives.
Have you ever helped a fellow veteran?
Of course.
Yes. Have you ever asked for help yourself?
It's always tough, right? I always feel like I can solve my own problems, but eventually, you just can't deal with it on your own. And you start to question, maybe people would be better off without me. When you realize that you're not alone, once you take that first step, there's so much support.
Welcome back. Another round of strong winds leads to a surreal sight in the south as backyard recreational equipment takes flight.
Another strange strong wind surreality caught on camera in Alabama as a doorbell camera recorded strong wind gusts, sending a trampoline flying right into a house. The bizarre incident happened in the town of Athens, which is nearly the same exact area that saw a pop-up storm send a giant inflatable bouncy slide flying a few days earlier. Just like in that one, thankfully no one appeared to be injured in the incident, unless you count the home's roof. Oddly enough, several social media users claim this happens often enough that trampolines are known locally as the state bird. One thing's for certain, just like the tramp, there definitely seems to be something strange in the air in Alabama. In Florida, there was another windy wonder witnessed, two, actually, as dual waterspouts churning off the Palm Beach coast were caught on camera. The twin twisters twirled on the horizon and seemed to switch places with one another before dissipating. The Palm Beach police shared video of the rare sight, saying sometimes we're fortunate to see interesting weather from a safe distance. Finally, a safe distance was required in Northern Ireland for a controlled explosion of a World War II-era bomb unearthed in the town of Newtownards. Days earlier, local police sent out an advisory informing residents of the discovery of a German SC-500 aircraft bomb similar to the one seen here. Residents were evacuated, and then officials let it rip, detonating the wartime relic and sending any associated risks up in smoke.
Looking for a place where ancient history meets rugged beauty? NTD's Daniel Monahan was in the Scottish Highlands, a place of wild landscapes, majestic mountains, and mysterious lochs. Take a look.
Those in search of peace and tranquility and a great place to explore the Highlands will appreciate the seaboard villages a few hours north of Edinburgh. Hilton, Ballantor, and Sandwick offer stunning coastal landscapes, rocky and sandy beaches, as well as beautiful wild grasses and flowers. A famous local attraction is the 11-foot-tall Mermaid of the North, which sits on the shore of Ballantor. Once you have taken in all the local abundance, a short road trip takes you to a breathtaking site called the Fyrish Monument. A hiking trail leads up an enchanting mountain. Gentle mosses cover the forest floor. It was built in 1782 on Fyrish Hill. The site offers stunning views of purple heather-covered hilltops and part of the North Sea called the Cromarty Firth. The hike takes around 2.5 hours to complete. The beautiful scenery makes it a rewarding trip. Those hungry on the way can enjoy some forest treats, fresh for the picking. There's no shortage of edible berries in this forest. A blueberry delight awaits those who take the time to gather them. Nearby the seaboard villages, you can also take a ferry to the Black Isle, to the village of Rosemarkie, to a magical site called Fairy Glen. Just a half a mile up this beautiful stream, and you'll reach 2 stunning waterfalls. Legend has it that fairies once kept the waters clean for villagers to use for drinking and washing. After you've enjoyed the falls, just over in the next village is one of the best places to see dolphins in Scotland, at Chenonry Point. Unfortunately, we missed the dolphins as our low tide timing was off. But thankfully, the timing of my son's flip was just right. The natural beauty of the Scottish Highlands is remarkable, but there are also awe-inspiring cultural monuments like Dunrobin Castle in the town of Galsby. The castle has been home to the Dukes and Earls of Sutherland for hundreds of years. The elegant castle gardens sit next to the stunning Dornish Firth of the North Sea. The carefully manicured gardens are soothing for the soul. Inside the castle, the former occupants from the 1700s onwards adorn the walls. Some of them had an avid hunting appetite, as can be witnessed by their trophy room of the Castle Museum. All manner of animals hunted in Africa, India, and even Florida are displayed there. While the natural and cultural beauty of the Scottish Highlands are undeniable, it is the warmth and friendliness of the people that makes the biggest impression for some. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And that really is a beautiful place.
Oh man, I've been there. It's incredible. I'd love to go back.
It's amazing. Moving on, a traditional Japanese ensemble is dedicating to reviving the ancient art form of taiko, a Japanese drum. But the interesting thing is the group is based in Toronto, Canada.
That's right. Through performances for the local community and in North America and Europe, they're sharing Japanese heritage with the Western world. Let's watch.
The taiko. For centuries, artisans and ensembles have helped preserve and share these traditional Japanese instruments. From the thunderous rhythms of festival processions to the delicate nuances of contemporary compositions, taiko continues to captivate audiences worldwide.
I felt the vibrations and how physical it was, and I knew when I was 12 years old this is what I wanted to do.
Kiyoshi Nagata founded Nagata Shachu, a not-for-profit, in 1998.
And once I finished university, I moved to Japan to study professionally with a professional Japanese taiko group. And when I came back, I just started this, and I've been doing it ever since. I've never looked back.
The ensemble's principal aim is to rejuvenate this ancient art form and share it with others.
No matter what culture you come from, everyone can relate to the sound of a drum. You don't need language to understand it.
Taiko simply means drum. A variety of drums and percussion are used in each performance.
Drums, it's called okedo taiko, very common in Japanese ensembles. It's made from strips of wood, and the skins are wrapped around an iron hoop and then attached to the body with rope. So this one's very light.
Along with the performance, the costume also carries purpose and meaning.
So it's a hachimaki. It's mainly to keep the sweat from coming into our eyes, but it also symbolically brings your body and your mind, it wraps it together. This is called an obi. Obi is just basically a sash, just to hold our jackets in place. The shoes, yeah, these are called tabi, very typical in Japan. Dancers or people in festivals wear them.
Japanese drumming is more than just a musical performance. By beating the drums with the whole body, there is an exchange of energy that brings a wide range of emotions to the audience.
We really have to concentrate, but at the same time, we have to listen to each other and also kind of project ourselves to the audience as well.
Having toured extensively through North America and parts of Europe for the last 26 years, Nagata Shachu continues to spread Japanese culture and appreciation for the art of taiko.
We just want to really share our spirit and our heart with the audience. A lot of people think Japanese culture is very delicate or sophisticated. Also, there's another side of Japanese culture which is very lively and very exciting and very happy. And so we want to show this to our audiences as well.
Well, that was really, what a performance. Well, thank you for watching NTD Newsroom.
Join Tiffany Meyer for the NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific. I'm Chris Beers.
And I'm Fiona G. See you next week.